The Rum of the Mist show that you are currently tuned into will begin in about 5 minutes. Until then, enjoy this wonderful tune.
Why does a good man have to die? Another piece of shit to be born. Reasons unheard of tearing my flesh. My heart is ripped, my soul is torn.
You are listening to Realm of the Mist podcast with your host, Chris Stolle, presented by Realm of the Mist Entertainment.
Thanks.
What is up, guys? Chris Stolle here again with another Realm of the Mist podcast. Joining me as always is the lovely and talented Kristen Stovall.
Hello.
And the Freddy Krueger of my wet dream, Mr. Zephyr.
I don't know where to go with that one.
That is a really mean hand job.
I immediately have flashbacks to the scene in Deadpool where Weasel is just ripping into him. You look like Freddy Krueger face fucked the topographical map of Utah. do you guys know the story behind that scene?
No.
I used to, but it was improv. I know that much, but I don't remember how much. It was
basically Ryan Reynolds and the guy who played Weasel sat down in the booth, and just for like 2 hours or so while they were filming and had the cameras rolling, he just went on a just rant of all the things he could think of.
Basically, they were one-upping each other, trying to see who could come up with the biggest insult.
Nice. That just sounds like a regular family get-together for me.
Yeah, it sounds like a Saturday night for me. I can't say nothing on that. But guys, we are here, and I'm going to play this right here and now real quick.
Oh, you fucking twat. We got ourselves a fucking spoiler.
Yes, a spoiler warning, because we are going to be delving headfirst into a spoiler review of Avengers Endgame. So if you have not seen the video yet, stop, or seen the movie yet, stop this podcast. Go see the movie. You have been warned. We're going to talk about some other news before we get into the spoiler review, but I'm giving you your heads up now so you got more than enough time.
And
Okay.
Game of Thrones spoilers, too.
Oh, yes, there's going to be Do I have to play the spoiler again?
Please tell me the spoiler alert is just klaxon alarms going off and like a deep voice going, "Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!"
No. We have a Welsh guy, one of our great listeners, Mr. Richard J, who, while on a toilet, recorded us a spoiler warning. So in a deep Welsh accent, you hear, "Oh, you fucking twat! You got ourselves a fucking spoiler." Yeah.
Somehow that's better.
That is better. Especially knowing
Against
he was.
all odds, somehow that's better.
Especially when you consider the fact that he recorded it in a bathroom, in a stall, on a toilet, while other people were fucking using the restroom too.
Oh, it just gets better and better.
I'm telling you, podcasts are not scripted. If you want a script, go to a doctor's office. We keep it improv here. Yes, there's going to be spoilers for Game of Thrones episode 3, season 8, episode 3 as well. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about Mr. Mark Hamill. I mean, we're mostly Star Wars fans here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We like that little show every so often.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I thought Star Trek was the show.
Well, they're all shows. Look, the true show is the theater, okay? Forget all this fancy sci-fi stuff and go back to the Maudeville days.
A Star Wars musical, I would pay, starring Mark Hamill. I would pay money to see that.
Well, they have Shakespeare. They have Star Wars Shakespeare.
Those are actually good books too, by the way.
Yeah.
But I know the story, so you know. But
Right.
no, Mr. Mark
Doth
Hamill.
mother know you weareth her drapes?
So
Sorry, I thought it was fitting, given the topic.
it really was. Thou art not my offspring. But Mr. Mark Hamill got himself in a little bit of hot water with the fans of Star Wars on Twitter, wanting to chastise him for sharing a picture of what could have been in his mind. Regret that he had in his involvement with the sequel trilogy, that he never got the opportunity to see at least one scene of the old original gang all together for at least one scene. And of course, there was a picture of everybody in the Falcon, as they are as age now. Personally, I don't see what the issue is. I mean, of course, as a Star Wars fan, I would have loved to see them all get together, but at the same indifference, it didn't happen. I understand where Mark's coming from. He shared a Photoshop picture, and people are blasting him for it.
Not all people. It's just like some vocal people. I did look into it. In fact, I just was on Twitter looking at all of this. Apparently, where some of them are coming from is that where it was originally posted was like a very alt-right page. I don't know. I didn't follow it. But
So
apparently it was like the source of it. And so they're like,
the
no, this is
preparation
not
H.
okay. Probably.
You're saying I should be grabbing the preparation H right about now.
Yeah.
Nobody gets butthurt like the alt-right.
Hey. Look, I'm again,
Well-
I was going to try to stay away from politics in this episode, but yes, I've made no secret I'm a Trump supporter, and I've made no secret that I'm right of center. I'm not alt-right, but I'm right of center.
Well, what I was saying is it's not the alt-right people who are upset. It's the left people who are upset because it came from an alt-right page.
Right of center is so far away from alt-right. Right of center is like almost left compared to alt-right, and not all Trump supporters are alt-right.
Well, I know that. You know that. But most people, if you're not extreme leftist, you're alt-right.
Alt-right is that's not entirely true, because I have a lot of friends who are on the left, and even a couple who are on the extreme left, and they don't believe that everybody on the right is alt-right. They are fully aware that the alt-right is a fringe group, a very vocal and dangerous fringe group.
I think the problem that we have is that a lot of times people just like make a general statement and they're not specific, like, oh, right, or they just always just like make a general sort of blanket statement, and then it turns into, well, we're not all this or we're not all that, and it just gets out of hand, especially on social media. It's so easy for it to blow up, and I think that's what's happening here. It's just like
I could do an entire video on something called the Overton window and why that ties into why I think political parties are dumb.
Well, look, I'll put it to
you
you this way: if you remember Knights of the Old Republic video game, obviously, Zepp, I know you do, and I'm pretty sure, Kristen, since you played the Old Republic, you at least remember the Knights of the Old Republic games.
Yeah.
You remember on your character sheet you had a little bar that went from blue to red. And,
you have that in Old Republic too.
Right, and that bar represents whether you're light side or dark side. I think most people, the vocal people on social medias or otherwise, that want to yell about the left side or the right side of the aisle, they look at it as like that center bar is just separating the extreme left from the extreme right, when in reality, the middle bar would be moderates, whatever. Centrists. And then the very tippity top of the blue and the very tippity bottom of the red would be your extremists, and then everybody else would be somewhere in the middle of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where we could have our conservative or liberal views, our Republican or Democratic views, or libertarian or whatever Aryan you could have on there, and not be not be some crazy, insane fucking Ocasio-Cortez type or Bernie fucking Sanders guy, the 1% of the 1%, or whatever the case may be on that would be the equivalent of the right side. The first one that comes to mind is like Alex Jones, but he's not a politician, so it makes no sense.
Well, that's the whole thing of the Overton window is you brought up AOC and Bernie Sanders. Those two politicians are pretty firmly on what we typically know as just the left. They're not really like extreme left, but because the alt-right came into such mainstream popularity, the alt-right pulled the Overton window so far to the extreme right that regular left politicians are on the left side of the extremist window for the Overton window.
See, I would disagree with that because let me finish. The reason I would disagree with that. No, I'll let you finish. But the reason I agree with you for the most part, except for the fact when it comes to those two examples, the reason I say they fall more under the extreme left is because of their open communism/socialism views. I think that's a little different than somebody, say, for the sake of argument, like, much as I hate to use the name, Hillary Clinton.
They embrace the word of socialism, but I really don't think they truly understand what socialism is entirely, or what the branding of socialism is, because their ideas are not inherently super communist or socialist with the socialist communist connotation, because their ideas aren't new. We've had them in the U.S. before. The 70% marginal tax rate on income over, I think it was like 10 million or something they said. We had that back in the 70s. In fact, it went almost up to 91%. We had that. That's nothing new. The government has done that before. But with the Overton window, what it is either side of the Overton window, you just imagine a box, either side on the right or the left, those are what are considered the extreme views. And when one or other side pulls the extreme views further to the right or to the left, it makes more standard left or right, or even moderates or centrists, look like extremists. It all depends on what the current mainstream views of society are.
Well, right now, the current mainstream...
More of a psychology thing than a politics thing.
No, I get your point, but
Fascinating.
With today's mainstream view being polarized definitely by general biases through social medias and the mainstream media, I wouldn't argue that it's the alt-right pulling that window. I would argue the point that it's the extreme left.
No,
who's trying to make it seem like the alt-right is more of an issue than it is.
I
Again,
think
kind of lowering the bar of where the alt-right begins.
There is a tug of war going on with the Overton window right now.
We want to be the extremists.
The alt-right pulled it super far right, and the response to the left was to pull it super far left. And there's just a tug of war going on right now that I'm pretty sure the Overton window is just going to open up, and everything is going to be considered.
Well, and then you add in something like social media, where anybody can just get on social media and comment, and you're going to be more savage and vicious because you're not looking at another person, and at this point you're not even listening. You're just like, well, this is my position and this is what I'm going to say, and so people just start hurling stuff out there, and it no longer becomes about having an open discussion so much as being right. Like, I'm right and you're wrong, I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy, and so it's just gotten so insane because of that. And I'm one that I'm like, and I'm sure the politicians love it because we're all trying to kill each other, and they're like, let's go have barbecues together.
No, you're not. You're absolutely not wrong. In fact, I've lost friends over political debates as of late. Well, not as of late, but since like Trump has taken office and this rise of democratic socialism, which is a pipe dream. And you try to have a debate and a conversation about it, and it turns into insults and mudslinging, and next thing you know, people are unfriending people. And Kristen is absolutely right. It's because of the anonymity of the troll mentality that I could say whatever I want with no repercussion. Because I'm not standing there. There's no danger of you coming and punching me in the nose for being disrespectful or something of that. And I know I'm like sounding like an old man.
And you're
I'm
not
gonna
even
punch you in the
seeing-
noggin. But I mean, you know.
And you don't also see the impact of your words on a person in an emotional way. You only see a screen and the words. And it's really easy to say and do things and present things in a way that you wouldn't, and in a way that closes minds, when you don't have to see that face and have that real conversation.
And the real danger of it is that it's gotten to the point now where we're moving past just insults on social media. Now people are using their ill-gotten information, whatever it may be, you know, whether they believe you're an alt-right simply because you said, you know, Obama was not the greatest president that ever lived. Now they're doxing you and painting you as a terrorist and a threat to the society, and destroying your family and destroying your job. And it's like, really? Like, this is the world we live in. Like, absolutely. Should a Nazi be punched? Sure. Should a white supremacist be removed from society? Absolutely. But I can make the same argument about an Antifa or Black Lives Matter supporter. But the fact of the matter is those are the minority of everybody that you're fucking up with your arguments.
Right.
My political ideology is simple. I follow the Tao of Bill and Ted. Be excellent to each other.
And
Yes.
party on, dudes!
Yes.
See,
I'm very centrist, so I'm just like, can you people just shut up for 5 seconds and talk and realize that you kind of want the same things? Like, the non-crazy ones kind of want the same things, but they're all so busy about arguing about that their way to get it is the right way.
Can we handle this shit one issue at a time, please?
you're absolutely right.
Stop trying to tie everything together.
Yeah, it's not a Marvel MCU movie. We don't need 10 years to figure out how to end this shit. All right, 22 films, but no.
And now we've wrapped ourselves right back to the actual topic.
There you go. That's
That's how
we
it works.
do it.
Although the actual topic's Mark Hamill.
Well, it still kind of
We're
fits.
on.
It still kind
I
of
know.
fits because the MCU is with Star Wars, and is with Star Wars.
Disney.
Part
It's
of
all
Disney.
Disney now.
That's
Let's
right.
be honest. As far as politics go, it's all meaningless. One day Disney will control us all.
That's right.
They already own Star Wars, Marvel.
That's right, guys. Tune in next week when Realm of the Mist Entertainment will be presented by the Big Mouse House.
Yeah.
I
That's not
wish.
even anything against Disney. I just think it's hilarious.
Yo,
Forget
as long as
the
po-
Illuminati and the New World Order. Disney's the big cheese.
Look, I don't give a shit. If Bob Iger's checks signatures on the front of that check, I will bow to my mouse overlord any which way you want.
And they're welcome to make my books into movies. I'm just like, Disney, I've got nothing against you.
We will turn our podcast. We will have right across the screen of our YouTube videos. We'll have singing, dancing, fucking chirping chipmunks and birds and fucking squirrels. Whatever you want, Disney.
I
And
will
there
sit here dressed as
there
Snow
goes our
White.
YouTube monetization.
We will do whatever you wish. No,
Whatever
no,
it takes.
Mark Hamill. First off, Mark Hamill does have a reputation of being kind of a troll. He likes screwing with the Star Wars fans.
Kind of. He likes screwing with all of his fans.
That is
But you know,
true.
for all of that, he does really love them, and you can tell.
Which is why this kind of bothers me.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that he is, like, if anybody could be called a Star Wars fanboy, it's Mark Hamill.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only does he love this franchise, he loves the fan base of the franchise.
Right.
And that's been known for 42 plus years. To blast this guy because of one little picture, regardless of who started it or whatever, is
Right.
that's kind of messed up. You know, that's like kicking grandpa.
And the thing is, it's so important to think about a person's intentions. First of all, Mark Hamill, because I was looking at the thread, didn't even know where it came from, and he hasn't even gone in and confirmed. Like, literally, one person was saying this is where it came from. I've seen that picture on Facebook, like, well before this was posted. And he didn't intend it to meet. These were his friends. It's like the equivalent of somebody sharing a picture of their high school friends and someone else going, oh, well, that insults everyone who went to high school thereafter.
Right. No, you're absolutely right, and I know it's the polarization of the fan base about what the House of Mouse has done to the Star Wars franchise, particularly what Rian Johnson has done to Episode 8.
I have a couple friends on my Facebook who are on the other side of the whole Star Wars debate thing.
Okay.
Like, just about every other day or so on Facebook, they're sharing stuff from, like, groups of, like, the Extended Universe, Mafia, or whatever group or everything. And, like, they're always sharing these letters of, like, we will resist the mouse. And I'm like, what? Come on, dude. It's all Star Wars. Enjoy it.
Right.
Well, let me remind everybody what has been said. Kristen knows what I'm about to say, because we've had this conversation with our previous Star Wars panelists numerous times. Zep, because you're new to Realm of the Mist, I'll say it again, and particularly to those types of friends that are EU supporters. When Disney bought Star Wars, Lucasfilm in general, and announced that they were discontinuing what they were calling the Legends series to allow new canon to be told, I was excited. And the reason I was excited wasn't because I don't like the EU, it's because what was going to come out was going to be fresh and new, something I had not seen or read before. So I was excited. Now, whether you feel that's what has come is a good thing or not is not in question. The fact of the matter is I was one of the people that was not upset at the EU no longer being canon.
So was I.
With that being said, though, you do know that Disney still releases the Legends books. They're still available to buy, purchase, read.
I know that.
There are definitely things I liked better from the Legends books. As I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of Force Awakens. I literally almost fell asleep in the movie theater, and that's saying something because I do like Star Wars. But I didn't almost fall asleep during Last Jedi. There were a few places where I'm like, from a writing standpoint, why did you go there?
There's nothing saying that Disney can't adapt the Legends universe into movies later.
Which it kind of sounds like they're going to be doing that a little bit with the Rise of Skywalker.
It would be super easy for them to throw a title card up on the beginning of of a Legends movie that says, "A long time ago in another galaxy far, far away."
The multiverse.
Oh God. Star Wars steals from Star Trek and gets the mirror universe.
That'd be kind of amazing, actually.
One of the things I was always disappointed as a Star Wars fan that we never saw in the movie universe or in, like, the TV shows and stuff on, like, Cartoon Network or Rebels or that style stuff. I wanted the Young Jedi Knights books to get adapted.
Oh, yeah.
Because I loved those.
Well, I'm just saying, like, people nowadays that want to polarize Star Wars the same way as they want to polarize politics.
Everything?
Yeah, everything. Is like you either like the new canon or you like the EU. You can't like both. And they hold the people who are absolutely, EU purists, they act like these are the do no wrong books and stories. And they
did some wrong.
Chewbacca was crushed by a moon. You have little monkey animal primates that have bubbles around them that negate the Force, the Yazmari. Look, those were the porgs of fucking the EU. Okay.
Yeah. It's that whole if you're not with us, you're against us.
Except the porgs have an excuse.
Except the porgs.
Yeah, they have to cover up they have an excuse for on the island. They don't have an excuse for sticking around and being on the windshield of the Millennium Falcon like one of those Garfield things.
Sure they do.
Okay.
Chewbacca.
But I don't like
dragons.
Hey guys, just to let you know, we just got joined by Miss Venus Chan. Hi, Venus.
I mean,
Hey. Yeah, sorry about that. I got caught up on trying to my kid was asking me to tell her some big words and stuff so she could go confuse her dad with them. So
that was a worthy cause.
it was. She got conundrum and she's like, "Hey dad, I got a compilation of conundrums for you." And he's like, "A what?"
Nice.
Daddy,
Anytime you want big words, come to me. I looked them up, and it's like this game for me.
That just sounds.
We're waiting.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of a Shakespearean level way to describe that, but that just sounds mean.
Daddy,
You know
Mommy
what?
taught me new words. What words? What words, baby? Child support. I shouldn't make that joke.
That's just diabolical.
No, she's got paradox. She's got a few other good ones, anyways. And he's just looking at her like, "What did you say to me?"
How old's your
I've
daughter?
got a whole.
She's 9. She's way smarter than he is to begin with. So I mean, it just adds.
That's what I was about to say. She's already got a better vocabulary than I do.
Yeah, well, kids get their IQ from their mothers, so I mean, it says it all right there.
Oh, please don't say that. Then I
Oh,
have
but
no
it's
hope
true.
for my kids. Does it skip a generation or something?
I would argue against getting the IQ from their mother, but then again, now that I think about it, my mother is probably a little bit smarter than my dad.
Yeah. Well, and people tend to
It's okay, my dad's cooler.
they tend to partner with people with similar IQs as well. So, I mean, it's
Right. That's true.
Explains my wife.
Now, why are you going to drag your wife down to your level?
I'm not dragging my wife down to my level. My wife is smarter than me.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Right there, you demonstrated your intelligence by saying that.
Well, I am relatively intelligent. My trade is basically in the electrical engineering field, ish.
ish.
Hey,
I'm an aircraft mechanic.
Oh, cool.
My wife is a mental health therapist,
Oh, nice.
so she is smarter than me.
wait a minute. She's a mental health therapist.
Yes, but
That explains how you
specializes
two
in-
got together.
specializes in marriage and family counseling.
There you go.
That explains how you
Wow.
two got together.
Yeah, she's gonna
Yeah,
undermine you every turn you take.
We're pretty much doing the co-decision making pretty well, actually.
Good.
Oh, I know that decision. I made that decision a long time ago with my wife. She wanted a cat. I didn't want a cat. We compromised and got a cat.
Compromised and have 2 cats. One of them's not actually ours. We're actually sitting it for a friend.
Oh, there you go.
And in 3-4 more years, they'll be back and they're going to kick your ass. No, I'm sorry. All right, enough with picking on Zepp. Actually, I know Zepp is extremely intelligent, especially after doing the Press A Gaming podcast, which you hosted. And, yeah, I learned how dumb I am.
Let's be honest. I was winging it.
Let's be honest, we're always winging it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So again,
Probably why it's good we don't have to worry about, being censored anymore.
yeah, we tried that whole censor thing. It didn't work.
No. It's not good.
But it did give birth to fuck the FCC.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
That was a fun episode.
if we end up getting big on YouTube, we might have to go the route of censoring ourselves again. But at least we can edit and post.
Not at all. We will just give clips on YouTube and force people to go over to our Patreon page where we can do whatever the hell we want.
Highlights.
Look, for
YouTube
$1, you
right
get
there.
the real shows. Oh, Jesus. But back on topic at hand, Venus, you haven't missed much for the whole 30 minutes that this show has been started. We're still on the first topic, which was Mark Hamill.
People
Okay.
being mean to Mark.
For supposedly sharing a meme picture of all the original cast in current age and state, sitting in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon and talking about missed opportunities. And people blasted him for it. Now, I'll let Kristen go ahead and reiterate what she found out about, like, what people were blasting her or blasting him and for what reasons.
No one was blasting me, to my knowledge.
That's why I corrected myself.
I know. Well, and I saw this just on one comment because I was kind of looking at it and looking at the comments, and one person was saying that the reason that they were mad, at least, however, they did use the lovely terminology like he was speaking for everyone, as we tend to do when we think we're making a brilliant point, that the image came from an alt-right page or Twitter account or something, and that's why it wasn't okay. And so Mark Hamill said, well, I didn't know that, but I also haven't verified that. And to be honest, I'm not sure if it's true, because I myself actually saw that exact picture on social media like a week or two ago, well before any of this broke up. And it was on Facebook. It wasn't on Twitter. But then there were also people who were just like, oh, that's so mean to the new people. And I'm like, that he was saying one scene. Like, there were a lot of Star Wars fans standing up for him too, though.
That is true, but again, speaking from the fact that Star Wars fans as a whole, like we're supposed to debate the movies. We're
right.
That's the fun of being a fan. But the fandom has gotten so toxic that now we're tired of blasting each other, and now we're blasting the artists. Like, we got tired of picking on Ahmed Best for Jar Jar Binks. We got tired of picking on Kelly Marie Tran for Rose. Now we're going after Mark fucking Hamill. Really?
Yeah.
Well, look at everyone that went after, like, everyone who's ever in the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, I want to know who thought it was a good idea to go after Mark Hamill. That man is one bad day away from becoming a supervillain.
He plays one on TV. He plays a couple on TV, and he does it really well. Has anybody seen the trailer, the teaser trailer for the new Chucky movie, the new Child's Play with Mark Hamill voicing Chucky?
Oh yeah.
Holy fuck, is his voice
creepy?
creepy?
Able to sleep.
Holy fuck, is his voice creepy as Chucky? No, don't piss that man off.
I told you, he is one bad day away from becoming a supervillain.
Wow.
He's also Darth Vader's son. Don't piss off Darth Vader's son.
That's it. He has a tendency to go dark side.
Yeah.
He
runs
might
in the
Don't piss him
family.
off.
he might ignite his lightsaber and think about killing his nephew.
I think he was thinking about something else, and the lightsaber just happened to be there. He kind of went, "Oh, did I leave the gas on?" And that's when Kylo woke up, and it was awkward. It was one of those awkward family moments.
Like, I think that's a great character arc for the new movies, the direction they wanted to take that, because I think even the way Luke was in the extended universe, if that moment had ever happened to extended universe Luke, he would have done the exact same thing that canon Luke did.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because
Luke had a reputation of being brash.
Oh shit, holy crap, I almost gave into the dark side. Nope.
All the nope.
Well, that's it. I mean, even throughout all canon, whether it's the EU canon or the current canon, Luke has always been kind of brash and act on instinct type character.
Well, he gets that from Anakin. Like, he acts on his emotions. They've never really sort of mastered that in that family.
Right. But you think about it, like you blast him for having a moment of weakness where he almost killed Kylo. Well, remember, he almost killed Vader because Vader threatened to turn Leia to the dark side when he found out that Leia was his daughter. Think about when he rushed away from his Jedi training to save his friends at Cloud City, even though he inadvertently caused half of what had happened there.
Right. It's a slight oops. It's fine. Everybody's fine.
Telling me not my Skywalker, that is exactly what Luke would do.
Also, just like, there's nobody's Skywalker except the people who own the copyright, so that's sort of a pointless statement when you say that. Not my Skywalker. Never your Skywalker, just from a legal perspective.
That is true.
Unless you're writing fanfic.
Unless you're writing fan fiction. And to which I will give Disney credit on that as well, especially over people like Paramount and CBS. Lucas very much encouraged fan fiction and fan films and stuff of that nature. He thought that it was a great sandbox for people to express themselves in. So he allowed it to happen.
It's a great way to learn how to write.
Yeah, and so he allowed people to do it. And Disney, for the most part, has allowed that to continue since they purchased Lucasfilm. There are still Star Wars fan films and Star Wars fan fictions out there that people are allowed to write, and Disney's not blasting them for it. You know, so power to Disney.
If Disney wanted to blast people for fan fiction, they're definitely not one to talk. They have hundreds of thousands of pieces of art that is essentially official Disney smut, because back when they were drawing animation by hand, you got bored every once in a while, and sometimes there were some compromising frames.
I also heard it's because some of the animators weren't really getting paid much, and it was kind of their rebellious act. That's why, like, the Little Mermaid's tower looks like a penis, or that's why the dust spells sex in The Lion King.
Oh, that's just the stuff that slipped through.
Yeah.
Like there is hundreds of thousands of frames of art from official Disney animators that belongs to Disney, because as long as you work under Disney, any work you create is theirs.
Wow.
And occasionally, while you're animating frame after frame after frame for hundreds of frames for traditional animation, you get bored every once in a while.
It becomes a little challenge. What could I slip in?
And occasionally your characters will be in a certain position and your hand just slips, like, oh, whoops, I guess they're doing that now.
Oopsies.
So
it's just stupid to go after fan
you pull
fictions.
that frame out and you start over.
And now we call them Easter eggs.
It's just stupid to go after fan fiction, though. It's literally free advertising. I mean, it's free marketing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it also shows the fandom and how much they love and enjoy the product or franchise that you had produced or created. They love it enough that they devoted time and energy and free advertising to create something in that playground, that world, that fantasy realm, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's also a great way to headhunt talent.
Yep. And I've heard that on rare occasion ideas are taken from fan fictions.
I would not go beyond it. I've always said that in the wrestling world. The WCW back in the day, ECW, and WWF/WWE, I swear they were watching the independent circuits, not just for talent, but for story arcs and moves. Because I've seen shit done in the independents by people trying to get to that, the big three at the time. And they would pull phenomenally crazy fucking stunts and shit in the ring. And you've never seen it anywhere else. And then I swear to God, a week later, you see it on Monday Nitro. Yeah, not the person, but the move.
Right.
And you can't tell me they weren't just scouting talent. They were scouting different move sets and different fucking storyline ideas. So believing that Bob, not necessarily Bob Iger himself, but a team that Bob Iger has isn't trolling, flipping through different channels on YouTube and on fucking Patreon and shit, looking for the fan fiction to get some ideas. You can't tell me they're not doing that.
Not going to fanfiction.net. I mean, you do have to do a lot of sifting to find the good stuff.
Sifting was the word I was looking for. Trust the writer.
So Chris.
Yes, sir.
Chris, do you think it's about time we address the huge elephant in the room?
Moon Knight?
Well, I mean, that was going to be tangential if we talked about Endgame, but I was more talking about Endgame.
Well, I was saving Endgame for last. I was gonna it was intended to do the Mark Hamill one and then the Moon Knight ones first because I thought they would be the quick ones.
Oh, okay.
There's no such thing as quick with us. We just fly off on tangents and it can go anywhere.
At least there's an outline. Like,
right.
I mean, quick in podcasting terms, because I mean, talking for 40 minutes about Mark Hamill is
right.
relatively quick.
I mean, I get it. sometimes my characters are like, no, we're not doing that. We're gonna go do this instead. And I'm like, but
By the time we're done with this podcast, it's going to be as long as Endgame.
That could happen. It would be fitting for that intro we just gave. All right, guys. Well, let real quick. Let's get into it. The creators, the writers of the Avengers movies, including Endgame, are reported to want to take a stab at Marvel's Batman, basically Dark Knight. Anybody familiar with the comic and the character of Dark Knight knows that this guy would be an insane character to try to bring to the screen, but I think it would be absolutely awesome.
Don't you mean Moon Knight?
Moon Knight. Why do I keep saying Dark Knight?
Because you're thinking Batman.
I am thinking Batman. Well, he really is the Marvel. He really is the Marvel Batman. So
I know you're here. He's better than Marvel's Batman. He's basically Batman and Deadpool had an unholy love child.
It really is. Oh my God, how scary would a fucking Batpool be?
oh god! Now I want to see somebody cosplay that at a con.
I know you're here, Dracula. You fucking nerd. Where's my money?
I don't have a cat. Well, whose box did I just shit in? Oh my God! So
Moon Knight gets fucking crazy in the comics. Like that would be a movie on par with Deadpool.
So is this something people would want to see? Should this be like Phase 4, since we're going to be moving on to other types of Marvel superheroes and characters?
You know, I could get behind bringing Moon Knight into the MCU, especially if they're going to keep going with like the phases of the MCU like they have been, because you can easily tie Moon Knight into the Avengers, because at one point in the comics, he was a member.
That is true. And I know they're talking about like Endgame is not only the end of the current phase of the Avengers, but or of the MCU, but it's pretty much the end of the Avengers. I don't think so. I mean, we'll get more detail into it when we get into Avengers, but they left a lot of room open to the next Avengers, West Coast Avengers, you know, and just the Avengers in general, who have always had a rotating roster. You know, so the idea that the Avengers themselves is gone, that there would be no more Avengers movies or no more Avengers, you know, story arcs for the MCU, I don't see that necessarily being true.
I could get behind the West Coast Avengers. I would love to see Hawkeye and Ant-Man go off to where were they where were they based out of? West Coast Avengers. Was that San Francisco?
I think it was. San Francisco or Sacramento, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know it was one of the S names in California.
I have the campaign books from the original 1980s, 1990s Marvel role-playing game.
Marvel Superheroes?
Yeah, that has all the information in there. I'm sure I could just open it up and find it one of these days. Or I could just, or I could just Google it.
You could do that too, but while you're doing that, guys, would you be thrilled to see a Moon Knight movie? Would you even be interested in the character if you don't know who he is?
I don't know who he is, but I mean, sure, why not?
Particularly knowing
They're going to keep making Marvel movies. I'll just, whatever. Just throw another one at me. I don't care. Throw like a handful at me and see which one sticks on the wall. It just works.
Right? That's exactly what I'm thinking, too, because I had, like, no idea who he was either, and I'm like, you know what? Bring it on.
Why not?
At this point, what haven't we touched? Like,
well, as Zep said, he really is like Batman and Deadpool's bastard child, and unlike Batman, he really doesn't have that like no kill mentality.
Right.
So
sure, why not? Let's just do it.
He would definitely be an R-rated movie.
Yeah, as well, he doesn't kill people. He definitely fucks them up.
Yeah.
Like I said, sure, why not? Let's go for it.
So I looked it up, and West Coast Avengers were based out of Los Angeles.
Wow, was I completely
not an
off?
S.
Not an S at all. Well, there's an S in Angeles and Los, so there's two S's.
Yeah, but on the end.
Yeah, there's an S. I stand by it.
Yeah, no cigar for you.
No counts.
No cigar. No, we get a cigar, guys. Let's take a quick pause before we get into some of the spoiler stuff, and just heartfelt from Realm of the Mist Entertainment to Mr. Kevin Hunter and his wife, and congratulations on your new baby girl, Leia. Welcome to the world, princess, guys. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Carrie Fisher's spirit lives on.
Yes. All right, guys. Now that we've gotten done talking about life and characters that we want to see come to the world, let's start talking about some that have left us. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to talk about Game of Thrones.
Which was a surprisingly light episode on named character death.
It was light, but it definitely...
Can't be very many of them left at this point.
I mean...
We expected a lot less.
It's Game of Thrones, so I went in going, all right, like, anyone, everyone, they could all
I don't
be
really
dead.
watch Game of Thrones, nor do I read the books, but I know George R.R. Martin's writing style well enough that the man loves killing people.
But the problem is that Season 7 and Season 8 of Game of Thrones, the TV show,
They're past what he has written.
what he's written, yeah. Season 5 was Dance of Dragons.
But it's still following his vision, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, they do know what like his high points were and what he was planning on doing, and I think they're trying to track with that as much as possible. But I would definitely say that since they've gotten out of the books, you do see more of the Hollywood style of writing. Like they seem a little hesitant to just, red wedding a bunch of people. I'm never gonna forgive George R.R. Martin for the red wedding ever. We'll never forgive him. But
as far as the deaths in Game of Thrones go, the Red Wedding was probably the most historically accurate. Because that shit happens in history a lot.
Probably.
He was my favorite character. I'm don't like George right now. He killed my favorite. I don't like George for many years now because he killed my favorite character.
Poison a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid who was a brat. Yay! Everybody's happy. Stab a pregnant lady 15 times in the belly. Sure, that's fine. Yay! Cut off a dude's dick. Yay, that's fine. Kill off Robb Stark. No.
No. Don't touch my Rob. I have very specific tastes in men. It's a very limited pool.
You know what? It's a little off topic, but not. Motley Crue's The Dirt, the movie on Netflix. It is fucking me up that the guy who played Mick Mars was fucking Ramsay in Game of Thrones.
The whole time you're just waiting for him to do something really bad, aren't you?
Yeah, I really am. It fucked me up for half the movie. Like, dude, are you gonna fucking rip somebody's dick off?
Are you gonna make two dogs eat someone? I ran into that because I saw him in like an old British show, and he's plays the nicest guy, but I'm just like, run, all of you run. Had Ian McKellen in it too, and I'm like, don't hurt Gandalf.
That is an evil man in evil clothes.
And the funny thing is in the movie The Dirt, Mick Mars is kind of the almost the conscience of Motley Crue. Like, while the rest of them are being totally debauchery and decade of decadence, he's the one who's like the older guy and trying to be the voice of reason to these teenagers or whatever. And you're just sitting there like Ramsay Bolton is trying to be the wise one.
No one's buying it, Ramsay.
I don't know what I was more impressed with, him playing Mick Mars or fucking Machine Gun Kelly pulling off a perfect impersonation of fucking Tommy Lee. Who
that was surprising.
In that movie, Tommy Lee, you know what he reminded me of? The way he acted and the way Machine Gun Kelly portrayed him? It reminded me of Kelso from that 70s show.
Nice.
Jack,
Let me have to go watch
the
this.
weather.
It really, really did.
We have whenever we get together, my siblings and I, somebody will say something, and one of us will go, "Well, damn, Jackie!" Like it's just a common occurrence for us.
Burn. But yeah, Game of Thrones. We're getting too happy for
Game of Thrones.
which, okay. First off, let's address the elephant in the room for that factor, which is the how dark the cinematography was. I argue the point that was intentional, not only for the mood and feel. They wanted you to feel the oppression that the characters were feeling, fighting in this long night battle against undead White Walkers and everything else. But I also look at it from this standpoint. Yes, Game of Thrones is the most expensive television show on TV, but it is a television show. They probably saved a shit ton in budget by making it darker so they didn't have to give as much detail to shit.
I mean, I think they probably did a lot of detail anyway, just because it is Game of Thrones, and people can brighten their TV. So, like, if you don't put the detail there, they're going to brighten their TV and see it. There were parts that I thought were way too dark. Like, you were looking at a black screen. And I was like, well, this is not helpful. But then there were other parts where I thought it was exactly the lighting it should be. And I think it's the parts where it was pretty much just pitch black. And I know that I was really confused for many, many parts. I had to Google who died afterwards because I was like, I'm not sure who's alive still. I don't know.
The Battle of Winterfell, featuring SEAL Team 6.
It pretty much was. Like, this
is why I shouldn't be allowed to write crossovers.
I don't know. They might have fared a little better if SEAL Team 6 was there.
I mean, as far as named characters go, they actually fared pretty well. It was just really, really secondary named characters that died, and pretty much everyone else was okay. And then if you were an extra, you were dead.
Yeah,
you were the red shirt or the stormtrooper.
Or in this case, now I guess you have stormtrooper, red shirts, or Dothraki.
Well,
Right.
Hang on. I mean, if they died, but they took a bunch of White Walkers out, they're already a step above Stormtrooper.
Which is why again I said Stormtrooper, red shirt, or Dothraki. Can we talk about that for a minute? The Dothraki, yes, they're known for being able to fight in the fields and everything else. Which, by the way, again, guys, if you haven't seen the episode yet, pause right here. Go watch the episode, because we are going to be talking spoilers here for a minute. So you've been warned. If you continue on and you have it spoiled on you, that's on you. We are talking about it. You could pause and come back if you want to be able to see the episode.
Also said earlier we were talking about it, so.
Right, but that was more specifically for the Avengers stuff, which we're getting to.
Right.
But we're also going to be going a little bit into detail about the Game of Thrones episode, The Long Night. So, just, you've been warned. The Dothraki are at the front line of the defense against the White Walkers when they first show up, and the Red Lady comes out of nowhere, says a prayer to all the Dothraki swords, and they all light up in fire, and you think, oh, great, powerful, and they ride off into the field, because Dothraki are horse riders. They prefer being in a field than being lined up in charge.
Insta-die.
And it literally was like they used the blackness in the background, and you see the little dots of the fire, and there's a whole bunch of them, and they just bing, 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 bing. All the lights go the fuck out.
And that was brilliant. That was one of those places where absolutely they had it, like, the darkness where it should be. Because that was the whole point of that one. It was when there was no fire, and you're just like, I hear screaming, and I think someone died. We're still in the castle, right?
But
at the same time, I'm also like, welcome to how I see almost all Game of Thrones episodes, people.
I'm just imagining a character sitting in the background of, like, the castle at Winterfell, standing behind everybody, watching all the dark White Walker army in the background with, like, a toothpick in his mouth, flicks down a pair of sunglasses and pulls out a detonator. Let there be light.
So, I mean,
massive explosion in the background.
Well, to me, it was perfect storytelling, because the Dothraki next to the Unsullied, the Dothraki are like the most feared warriors in Westeros. Well, not just
Right.
Westeros, but in Game of Thrones, the horse riders of the Dothraki, of the Plainsmen, they are like the most dangerous, savage, killer fighters known, and the White Walkers wiped them out without so much as like breaking a sweat.
It was the perfect oh shit moment that they were going for.
Oh yes. Oh.
Because you're just like, oh shit,
That
this
is
is not good.
That is the White Walkers critical rolled a critical hit on, or a critical success on an intimidate check.
They really did. And then the White Walkers finally come to the defenses, and the Unsullied and the defenders that are out there outside the walls of Winterfell. And I mean, they come rolling in like the fucking plague, like the biblical plague.
It was like a tsunami of zombies.
It really was. Zombies with blue eyes just crashing waves over rocks and just tearing them up, and the Unsullied were gone like that, and now all of a sudden you've got the defenders of Winterfell, and they're pretty much all that's left. And,
Gandalf better get here quick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. It was Helm's
I'm telling
Deep.
you, had Gandalf shown up, it would have been bright enough.
Yeah.
He would have shown up with his staff, and boom, we would have been able to see.
That's actually a perfect example, though. This episode really was like Helm's Deep times 10.
Yeah.
The Battle of Helm's Deep times 10.
Except the Battle of Helm's Deep was a little more cohesive. Like, you're okay, I know what's going on. I know what's happening here. But see, that one was really dark, too, but you could see what was happening.
True.
Mm-hmm.
True.
But I'm always going to say something from Lord of the Rings is better than, like, everything. So, I'm not biased.
So people move back into the castle, and they ignite a trench, and I'm paraphrasing the shit out of it for
Right.
people that may not have seen the episode, may not have cared to see the episode, but want to hear the review anyway.
Right.
And they ignite the trench, and the White Walkers stop because fire bad. And the Night King, who's controlling these White Walkers, turns around and is like, no. Couple of guys fall on top of that fucking fire. Everybody use them as a fucking bridge and walk across.
Yep.
Like, literally, like it was nothing. Couple of them sacrifice themselves at a couple areas of the fire and walk across.
Oh, yeah. And it was great because, like, you'd see one fall, and then they'd time it perfectly. So, like, you just saw the one fall, and it'd take you a second, and then you started to realize what was happening, and they'd sort of fall into the fire, and then their little dead friends would climb on top of them, and, all the dead dudes were coming in to make more dead dudes.
Leap to our doom.
Pretty much. And then from that point, they start going after the castle walls. World War Z style, without machine guns.
Oh, yeah.
They were literally climbing each other like freaking roaches up the wall.
Yeah.
And a bloody, hellacious battle ensues. Many, many times that you thought characters should have been dead. And they kind of pulled the...
they were like under White Walkers, like ants swarming on them or something. It was crazy.
And to be fair, they pulled the shocker last minute save one too many times in that episode.
Yeah.
They really did. And pretty much I've learned anybody who protects Sam dies. So for the rest of the 3 episodes,
Sam should have been in the crypt.
It sounds to me like the Winterfell army didn't have enough casters.
no, they really didn't.
Nope. They had like one.
I didn't ask how big the room was. I said I cast fireball.
Yeah. Oh shit. I've got a D&D story for you one day. With that fireball instance, you'll dig it. But to finish on, a lot of characters that we cared about did die, like Ed.
Hey, sorry guys. Sorry to interrupt. I just gotta step out for a second.
No problem.
Okay.
All right. So Ed bought it protecting Sam, which is where I was going with the nobody protects Sam anymore.
No, that you're gonna die. Sam, go to the crypts. Wait, no, not a good idea.
And then you have the guy that died numerous times and came back to life. You know,
protecting Arya.
Protecting Arya and finally going to death because he fulfilled his mission, which was to protect Arya.
So the moral of this story is, when on the airplane they say put your air mask on yourself first, they mean it. Just you take care of yourself first, because otherwise White Walkers.
Yes, absolutely.
It's the same thing. It's the exact same situation. Airplanes and White Walkers, exact same situation.
I'm not entirely clued into how White Walkers work, but I'm pretty sure every person that gets killed pretty much just adds to their number.
When the Night King
magic it.
Yeah, when the Night King resurrects you, you become one of their numbers. But yeah, potentially anything dead can be resurrected by the Night King and become a White Walker.
But it doesn't just happen. He has to intentionally do it.
So what you're saying is the biggest wrench I could have thrown at the Night King was Deadpool.
Pretty much. But
yes.
the Night King proved Kristen and I right. Because in their infinite wisdom over at Winterfell, they thought they would put all their soldiers outside the castle, and they would take all their women, children, elderly, and sickly,
and non-fighters,
and hide them deep underground in the family crypts of the Stark family. The crypts.
Yeah, full of what? Dead bodies.
So,
and I'm like, all the episode before, I'm sitting there going, okay, did you all just suddenly get really stupid? Because up until now, I feel like you guys would have thought of this, but to be plot devicey and to have a fun trick thing, you're all pretending to be dumb now.
See, somebody analyzed Jon Snow's battle strategy for the Battle of Winterfell and deemed it dumb as shit. No general worth their salt would ever come up with a battle plan like this.
To be fair, wasn't it Bran's plan?
It was kind of like Bran and Jon and Daenerys, and then everyone was like, yeah, this is a good plan. Let's do this thing. Uh-huh.
All right, I'll break down the synopsis here real quick. Shit happens, things happen. The Night King makes it to the God Tree and the Godswood, and to Bran, and he's standing there and he's ready, and
Theon takes dies defending Bran.
Hey, he got his wood back.
Which I
told you that. In Game of Thrones, Theon needs to get his wood back. He got his wood back.
I knew that was going to happen, though. I knew he was going to go down defending Bran.
You did call. I didn't know if he was going to defend Bran, but you did say that Theon was going to die this episode.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, we're not sure if we lost a wolf. Ghost was out there.
Nope,
with the
he's in the trailer for the next one.
Is he? Okay, I didn't see the trailer.
As is the other dragon.
Good. I didn't know about him either.
Well, I kind of figured out that the other dragon didn't die because the dragon went down before the Night King did the whole let's raise all the bodies and get new fighters. And had the dragon been dead when he'd done that, they would have shown the dragon resurrecting. They would not have just skipped that one over.
You're right, but I do have to say this before we get to the end here. One, the Hound is the biggest pussy on the planet. I'm a big badass that says fuck off a lot. But when it comes down to battle against people, I ran away at the Blackwater fight, and now I run away because fuck it, we can't win against the dead. I'm a scared little. He pissed me off so much with that. But
part of it though is the fire. He's afraid of fire because of what happened to his face.
I know that, but
yeah.
He needs a redemption.
Kind of wimped out.
He needs a redemption because he really pussified in that episode. But I only said that because I wanted to talk about this. Who in this episode, and I'm going to give you three choices. Who in this episode was the ultimate badass? You have, of course, Arya Stark, who comes out of nowhere, literally out of fucking nowhere, and kills the Night King, which wipes out the whole...
How did she get through all those White Walkers?
Uh-huh. So...
She just apparated.
That's how rogues and assassins work.
True.
Hello, stealth rolls.
Yeah.
Or you have...
She gets a bonus for being tiny.
Or you have Lady Mormont, little badass girl who took on and slayed, as she was gurgling her last breath, took on and slain an undead fucking giant.
Right.
Or Jorah, who refused to die until Daenerys was safe.
Real quick, speaking of him, though, I swear, and my brother saw this too, I swear at one point Daenerys totally, like, threw him into a sword.
Probably.
She was like, come here, human shield. And, like, because my brother and I were texting afterwards, and he's like, and was it just me, or did she throw him into a sword? I'm like, I saw that too.
Talk about entitlement.
But he absolutely refused to give up and just bleed out until the fight was over and Dany was safe. So, like, who gets the title of badass in this episode? Because that's three of, like, the ultimates right there. Those were the standouts of the whole entire episode, in my opinion.
I'm gonna give it to Lyanna because she is a little kid. She was hurt. She knew she was dying, and she still took that giant out. And she's a kid. I'm gonna give it to her.
Let me put it in perspective for the two panelists that may not have seen the episode. The undead giant comes in swinging a mace, a giant tree branch, basically. As he comes in, he automatically smacks this 8-year-old girl halfway across the field.
Yeah.
She gets up screaming, holding a dragon's glass axe, runs straight towards the giant, and the giant just reaches down, grabs her in one hand, lifts her up, crushes her chest, and
then opens his mouth to, like, bite her.
Now, she's dying from the crushing blow, and he's getting ready to eat her, and she, with her last ounce of strength, jams that fucking dragon glass axe straight into this giant's eye, which winds up turning it into ice and shatters and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
and it drops her
out.
lifeless body. She gave a death blow. An 8-year-old girl dying gave a death blow to the fucking biggest creature on the field.
Biggest creature aside from a dragon. Like, I give it to her. And it wasn't sneaky or stealth. It was, she straight up just took that thing down.
She had the biggest set of balls on that field.
I would have to give it to the 8-year-old girl as well, because giants have a fuck ton of hit points. That was very clearly a one-shot critical hit. And
one-shot critical on a called shot.
Arya does not get badass points for a one-shot critical hit on the Night King, because high-level rogues with a sneak attack bonus, that's a fuck ton of dice right there.
Also, like,
I like rolling fistfuls of dice.
Overall, what did you feel about the episode, and what really stood out for you, Kristen?
Overall, my thoughts on the episode were, it was good. I think that they should have spent a little less time worrying about breaking records for the longest battle in cinematic history, and a little more time in the writing room. I felt like there was a lot of tension without a lot of substance, but I enjoyed it. One of the things that stood out the most for me was Theon's final moments and that little scene between him and Bran. Also, the crypts and that moment there was a conversation between Sansa and Tyrion, which I thought was really good. There were a couple really good little moments down in there.
I'm glad you brought those up, because I was going to mention when you said about the dialogue writing, it's like we did have some gems, and those were two I was going to give examples of, because they really were touching moments.
Right. But I think that the darkness of the show would have been forgiven by more people had there been a few more things in dialogue, or just in the writing. Doesn't even necessarily have to be in that. Just a little bit more structure in the writing, so that it was a little easier to track.
That's fair enough. For me, this episode was exciting. It was nice to see some of the things that people kind of claimed as fan service, like Lady Mormont's kill, or the fact that Arya was the killer of the White Walker, or excuse me, the Night King.
Night King.
Because a lot of us expected it to be like Jon Snow,
Right.
and all. But subverting expectations is absolutely a winner in my book. But was it the epic that they promised? To me, no.
Right.
I think the all-time battle for Game of Thrones to me will always be the Battle of the Bastards.
Yeah, it didn't stand up to the Battle of the Bastards. That one was better.
But I would say at least ranked with like Hard Home. I would give it at least Hard Home, especially the part where Jon is running towards the Night King and he turns around and he does do the resurrection. Which, by the way, the people in the crypt came to life during that resurrection, too. And Jon's in the middle of all these dudes standing up.
Just like a swarm. It was a sea of dead bodies that all of a sudden just stood up. And these were people who, like, a few minutes earlier were his allies.
Yeah, it was. There were some moments that I would at least put this episode with Hard Home. The Battle of Hard Home. So, definitely better than Blackwater Bay. Not as good as Battle of the Bastards.
No, Battle of the Bastards was just, it was more cohesive. It was, the writing in Battle of the Bastards was better. The way it was put together was just better.
Standing in the middle of a pile of dead bodies right after the resurrection. Moments you wish you had Dimension Door.
And really, my takeaway from this, with killing the Night King and stopping the White Walker threat, with only 3 episodes left, it makes me excited and and a little nervous about how we're going to handle going down to the Iron Throne now. Because first off, how do you top this? So that's my apprehension. Is that how do you top this? It almost feels like the White Walker should have been the last thing to handle. But at the same,
it felt like they jumped the gun a little.
Well, but I understand why they did it. From a writer's standpoint, you would appreciate this. When Dany came to the shores of Westeros, she had an unbeatable army of Dothraki, of Unsullied, of so many followers she's picked up in her travels to be able to take that throne, that if she would have marched directly down to King's Landing, she would have taken the throne uninterrupted. Unabated.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, all of her army got killed by the White Walkers.
Yeah, it does create
nothing.
What are they going to do?
Yeah. So, for drama standpoints, it makes perfect sense they did it this way. But and that's one of the pros going forward is I'm looking forward to the drama and how they rebuild from this to build down towards how do you take Cersei off the throne. But at the same time, for the final battle, because there's got to be a final battle.
Right.
What are you going to do to top taking out the threat of the world already?
Exactly. How is it going to not be a little anticlimactic compared to that?
Exactly. So.
I'm calling it now. Arya is going to march her happy little ass down to King's Landing and walk right into the throne room with the Iron Throne and Cersei sitting on the Iron Throne and just going to throw the Night King's head at Cersei. Pull out the needle, get the fuck off my chair.
I would say the fact that she killed the Night King, I think, kind of means she probably will not kill Cersei.
No,
I didn't say she was going to kill Cersei. I said she was going to throw the Night King's head at her, pull out a needle, and threaten her.
No, I wholeheartedly.
Get off my chair.
I wholeheartedly stand in my belief that Cersei dies at the hand of Jaime.
I do too. I think they might kill each other, but I think he's going to be the one to do it.
All right, guys. Sorry, go ahead.
But
Money.
Oh, she's talking.
Okay.
Okay, guys. It's time to get into the conversation that we've all been waiting for. For about 10 years and 22 movies, this little independent franchise has been going on.
Independent franchise.
Little independent
Super
franchise
obscure.
based on a very obscure comic book series by an unknown publisher. Guys,
How dare you?
Guys, this weekend has been like nerve-wracking to fandom in general.
Especially if people's last name is Stark.
Especially if last names are Stark. Um, guys, it's time to jump in, and I'm gonna say it right off the bat. Spoiler, 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 spoiler. If you have not seen Endgame yet, do not listen any further so that you will not have the plot and story ruined for you. Guys, I'm dead serious.
All in.
We are going all in. I am dead serious on this. If you do not wish to have Endgame spoiled because you have not seen it yet, stop listening now. Still here? All right, guys. Endgame.
You've been warned.
You've been warned. Endgame, guys. Come on. First of all, I'm going to start it right off the bat. Let me get an out of 5. Let's hear it. Where did it rank for you guys?
5 out of 5.
Okay.
TBD until they address the Vision issue. I'm very mad at them.
Give it time. They have to hold some cards close to the chest.
Well, there is the WandaVision thing. I'm pretty sure they're bringing him back, but I'm waiting. I'm not going to give them a nice score until they give me what I want.
If you think about it, due to events that happened in Endgame, Thanos wasn't there to take the Mind Stone from Vision.
Got kind of a point.
But he was still dead. Either that or Wanda thinks he's dead.
They all think he's dead.
Well, that's rude. He needs to reveal himself.
He's somewhere. Because he obviously couldn't have died because Thanos wasn't there to do it. Wasn't there to take the stone from his head.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
And Steve put the scepter back exactly where they got it.
And,
we'll see what happens.
And Venus?
I'm going to give it a 4.5, honestly. It just could have been... It was missing something. Just something was not there.
Vision.
I don't know what it was, but when you're sitting there and you're like, oh, no, it's... What... Like, I can't even wrap my head around it. What was the point that was missing? I don't even know, but I'm like, that's just how I feel. 4.5. There was something that didn't hit it for me, so...
I'm right there with you. I mean, I don't know so much about like something wasn't there, but as far as like cohesive story unit is concerned, I think Infinity War just squeaks above this. I really do, because of the fact, I guess you could kind of call it like the Empire Strikes Back syndrome, because it ended on such a down note and was so unexpected, even though we knew a sequel was coming, ended on such a dark tone and note. It made it that much more of an appealing story to me than Endgame did. However, Endgame was absolutely phenomenal, and the way they did tie in 22 movies and 10 years of lore. That's
impressive.
That's really impressive.
Right.
That's hard. A 3-story arc is hard. I can't. That I will give them definite props for.
Let's break it down from the beginning, though, because at least for me, sitting in the theater, I almost didn't know it had started because it kind of just rolled right into it.
It really did, and it brought us.
It did the quick Marvel Studio 10 years logo, and then it was right in it. One logo. That was it.
No, you're absolutely right. And then what it did to subvert expectations, you expected it to be like, all right, now we're going to go kick his ass. Instead, we got, like a good hour of downplay and emotion and seeing the aftermath of the Thanos
snap.
Snap.
It started pretty high with the let's go kick his ass, and then as soon as they got there, you had Thanos basically give them the finger of, you're too late. I already destroyed them.
Yeah,
rude.
He destroyed the Infinity Stones, but then Thor turns around and says, what are you doing? I aimed for the head.
That was super important, though, like for all of Thor's characterization throughout the whole movie. Like,
that was super important, but it also kind of felt like the writers turning around to the fandom and saying, "Fuck you, we heard you." You know what I mean?
well, not only was it the fans saying "fuck you, we heard you." No, that was chopping off Thanos' arm with the first strike, to where his arm hit the ground.
Very, very true.
The cutting off of his head and saying I went for the head was Thor's little jab back at Thanos, because Thanos directly taunted him with
Should have gone
for the head.
True. Absolutely true. But then we also go to Hawkeye, Clint, and his retirement with his family, and how loving he is teaching his daughter how to, shoot a bow and arrow. And he steps away for a split second and comes back, and his family is
all gone.
Yeah, that was hard. That was the hardest moment in the movie for me. Because I was just like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah.
But
there was something about Hawkeye and his family, and the fact that he had that little piece of like happiness and normality with all of this other stuff going on. There was like that little piece of, as long as this is safe, we're safe, and then nope.
My heart bled for Clint in that experience. And to be honest with you, I was never a huge fan of Hawkeye, even all the way back from the original Avengers, all the way back to the first Thor movie, where, okay, I've got the dude from, one of the Bourne movies or whatever, telling me he's a superhero, and really he's just, a regular soldier with a bow and arrow. Not buying it. I dug the way Hawkeye snapped. And he's just going through taking out every villain he can to try to just work through the pain of the loss of his family. Mm-hmm. And I loved that story arc. I really, really did. That Hawkeye just goes completely.
You need to check out the Ronin comics, because that is a comics canon thing that happened. Clint Barton took on a persona known as Ronin and just went on a murder spree, killing villains left and right.
Is that what he was
As
doing?
one does.
As one does.
As one does.
The Green Arrow taught us that in the first couple seasons.
Yeah. As one does.
As one. It must be a bow and arrow thing.
Yeah, I know. Get a little crazy.
So now we fast forward to the 5 years later. Clint's on a murder spree for the past 5 years. Ant-Man comes out of nowhere, popping out of his van in a used store lot.
Like, that moment, that is the moment where it dawned on me of thinking back to Infinity War, of Stephen Strange sitting there going through the 14 million possible futures, and I'm sitting here going, I swear to God, I swear to everything holy, if the one future where they win is because of the fucking rat.
So he comes back to life or not to life. He comes back into reality because he was
back from the quantum realm.
He was trapped in the quantum realm, right? And he goes to search out his daughter and finds out how much time has passed and what had happened to the world, and automatically sets off to find the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
To which he does find, and we have Steve Rogers and bunch of the other Avengers still around.
Well, at that point in the building when Scott showed up, it was just Steve and Natasha.
Right.
Everybody else was off doing their own thing. And shit, we skipped over like one of the most important parts.
Okay, well you give the recap then, because you seem to have it fresher in your mind. Now, I was getting there. We didn't get to Professor Hulk yet because we had Ant-Man with us first. If you remember, Ant-Man was the one that came up with the crazy idea of time travel, and that's why they went to go find Professor Hulk.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, time travel has my brain screwed up.
Well, it happens.
Back to the
Is
Future
this
is
how time
bullshit.
is supposed? Is this how time is supposed to work? Really slowly and in the
Timey-wimey.
right order.
Timey-wimey and wibbly-wobbly.
So see, you're spoiling the synopsis. No. You're spoiling the spoiler. So yeah, so he comes up with this crazy idea of time travel because of what he did in the quantum realm, in the back of his taco van, and so
tacos.
they go search out Bruce Banner, which 5 years later has turned into Professor Hulk, which I really want the story of how they did that.
They go to Tony first.
Right, and Tony's absolutely not having it. He's happy with Pepper and their new daughter. I forget her name.
Morgan. No. Yes.
Right.
Morgan, and Tony just wants to keep that.
Right.
You know, he doesn't want to sacrifice anymore. Tony is suffering some severe PTSD because of Peter Parker's dusting. Tony's not doing well with that. Forget the rest of the world, half the existence being snapped away. Watching Peter die fucked him up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You know,
I can see that being a thing.
That was very much a thing. And he was completely reluctant to help out the team, although I was thrilled to see the tension between Captain America and Tony end. Which I know I'm skipping ahead, but I was thrilled to finally see that put to rest.
Oh yeah.
You know, go ahead.
I think one of my favorite moments of the movie is after they came to speak with Tony and after he told them no and they went and talked to Bruce and they did their own time travel testing to interesting effect on Scott. I enjoyed Tony's running the simulations on his little home computer, and when it spits out the completed simulation that actually works, and Tony just falls into his chair like shit. Holy fucking, it can work.
And you know what? It was heart melting moments because even though he did that and everything, like what really stood out to me was just how good of a father Tony was. Like as he was working on that project and screwing with it, his daughter comes down, curious what he's doing, and wants a freeze pop or whatever, and just his interaction with her, putting her back to bed and everything else. You know,
What
like
shit? We
yeah.
don't use that word. That's mommy's word.
That's mommy's word. Like, I really fell in love with him as a father character. I thought it was a perfect role for Robert Downey right there. Mm-hmm. You know, it felt very organic and very real. It didn't feel like an actor playing a role.
Right.
You know, so and of course, like a father, when he finally he comes back to the Avengers with the device he was able to create to help with the time travel. And he comes back to the Avengers, he put it down to Steve what he was doing. He says, I'm going to help, but you need to understand my priorities. Mm-hmm. That I want to bring everybody back. I want everything back the way it was, but I cannot and will not sacrifice what I have.
Yep.
Right.
Meaning his wife and his daughter.
I think the most important part of that whole scene and arc of the movie there was that when he figured it out and found that there was hope, he immediately went to Pepper.
Yeah.
Right.
Talked to her about it. Thus proving and going full circle with the whole Iron Man character arc they've been doing in the cinematic universe this whole time. Pepper is and always has been Tony's conscience.
Right.
Which is really sad considering who plays Pepper. Have you guys seen the fake spoiler where everybody was saying Pepper gets all 6 Infinity Stones and shoves them up her vagina to sleep at night?
Oh.
What the fuck?
Why?
Well, she's known for that new age, new wave healing
Yeah.
bullshit of like sticking crystals, getting her vagina steamed, and crystal therapy and stuff like that. So the joke was that she used the Infinity Stones for her new wave therapies, stuck them up her vaginas, and somehow queefed out half of existence.
Oh God.
Wow.
So, but
Oh.
regardless, here or there, you're absolutely right. Pepper was always his moral compass, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning, where he was pretty much an out of control playboy.
Right.
You know, so there was a lot of callbacks, like not to skip too far ahead, but Tony's funeral, where they put the reef in the water, and you see in the reef is the first arc.
Proof that Tony Stark has a heart.
Right, the arc reactor that kept the shrapnel out of his heart from the first Iron Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
That after he had it removed and a new one put in, she had turned around and made it into a little statue, I guess, with that phrase on it for him as a gift. So I thought that was a nice callback.
Yeah.
But again, getting ahead of ourselves, and spoiler, Tony Stark dies. Kristen did say it's a rough weekend to be a Stark.
A rough week for
It was
Starks.
not a good weekend to be a Stark. Although, really, I guess in Game of Thrones, the Starks were all good, except that their home got invaded by ice zombies.
True. That is true. No Starks in Game of Thrones died.
There were no Starks harmed in the filming of this episode.
True. Well, I wouldn't say that. Arya got her ass kicked.
Yeah.
A lot.
Anyway, back to Iron
back
Man
to
as opposed to the Iron Throne.
Right. Back to the Avengers, who would have handled the White Walkers in about 30 seconds.
So Tony has a change of heart, comes back to the Avengers with the newfound hope of being able to save everyone. And so they all come up with this crazy plan of going back in time, jumping to the quantum realm to go back in time and steal the Infinity Stones before they were discovered in the first place.
Right. And that
Well,
plan...
they fucked up the one first journey when they were
As-
going back to get them, like,
As
right
Scott,
before Thanos caught them. But then they had to go do another one. Another trip.
as Scott put it, a time heist.
A time heist, yes. The whole entire premise was a time heist, and like Venus was saying, it not all went as planned.
No.
I mean, when you're dealing with time travel, it never goes as planned.
No.
No, it never really does, but, you know...
Loki ended up with one of the stones. And then Loki disappears.
Yeah, he disappeared
I
know.
with the
They
Tesseract.
Loki does.
They had better directly tie that to the Loki series that's coming to Disney Plus. Because if the Loki series is not about the 2012 version of was it 2012 or was it 2014? I can't remember. But that version of Loki that took the Tesseract and just fucking beast. It had better be about that version of Loki.
Well, I've heard that it is going to be in the pre-Infinity game. Or Infinity War.
I mean, you can call it Infinity Game just because put them both together.
Yeah, Infinity Game. There we go.
That works.
And then we move on to other factors where they knew they had to go back in time again because they screwed up, and Loki got the Infinity Stone and everything else, and they go back to the 1970s. Did they not? I think it was, or no, it was.
They did.
It was the 70s.
They went to the 70s, but I just love a lot of the scenes that we got in the planning of the time heist was great. Because, like, I remember the scene where it was, I think it was Natasha, Banner, and I think it might have been Tony, were all laying down on the desks with notes and papers scattered all around them. And Natasha goes, You know, guys, if you pick the right year, there's 3 stones in New York.
Right, and
Everybody just looks at her and goes, "What?"
Actually, I am kind of forcing my way ahead here because I'm jumping on the Tony and Steve story arc, but we do have to talk about Professor Hulk going back to Avengers 1, looking for the Time Stone, which he thought would be in possession of Dr. Stephen Strange, but it was before Stephen became a wizard. And
Oh, right, yeah.
we wind up running back into the Ancient One, who turned
Yeah.
around and completely fucked Professor Hulk up.
What did you do to me?
Pulling the same trick she pulled on Stephen Strange, except this time she literally knocked him the hell out of the Hulk.
And it answered an important fan question that people have been asking. Where were the users of the mystic arts during the original Battle of New York? And it answered that question.
Yes, it
The
did.
Ancient One was right there, helping out, just in secret.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, through the dialogue and everything, Bruce was able to convince the Ancient One to give up the stone, which she first originally wasn't going to do because that was their job, protect the stone, until he mentions about Doctor Strange and giving up the stone to Thanos, and she just stops like, wait, he willingly gave that stone? And right off the bat, she opens up the necklace, pulls out the stone, hands it to the Hulk, and says, "He's supposed to be the best of us. If he chose this path, there is a reason."
He had a reason.
He had a reason. To which, right off the bat, went off in my mind is that motherfucker knew exactly what to do to set the one path to make this work.
Yep. Yep.
You know, he
knew.
sacrificed the stone and himself to set in motion the events that would make the one outcome happen.
And we find out later in the movie with a line from Peter that he fucking knew what was going on the whole time, because when Peter shows up, he starts motor mouthing to Tony.
Yeah.
We all suddenly woke up and Doctor Strange was like, the Doctor Strange dude was like, "It's been 5 years, we gotta go," and he opened up the portals and got us all here, and it's like motherfucker knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which speaks volumes to not only like Benedict Cumberbatch's performance as Doctor Strange, but just the power of the character.
Mm-hmm.
And how
He's
much,
always been one of my favorite characters.
and how much he has grown since the first Doctor Strange movie.
Doctor Strange became one of my favorite characters the moment he said those fateful words that I will always remember. "Dormammu, I've come to bargain."
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Doctor Strange movie.
I'll be honest with you, I never cared for the Doctor Strange comics growing up. I never did. But the movie made me a fan, and it is directly Benedict Cumberbatch's performance that made me fall in love with the character. But the writing has been absolutely brilliant for his involvement in these last 2 films.
Oh yeah.
He is the first Marvel Cinematic hero that forced their villain to rage quit.
If you can't beat him, get him to rage quit.
So, unfortunately, the only group that did the time travel to get stones that was pretty much successful and without a hitch was Barton and Natasha.
No, they had a pretty big hitch.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you explain.
So, Natasha and Clint got sent after the Soul Stone. We've all seen Infinity War. We know what that means.
Yeah.
So as soon as they go, they get there and they're guided to where you receive the stone by the Red Skull, which we got a nice little Easter egg with Natasha when the Red Skull greeted them, because it was their name, son of or daughter of. And for Natasha, we got daughter of Ivan, which is an interesting comics callback.
Right.
And I'm hoping the Black Widow solo movie expands on that. They have to decide between each other who's going to sacrifice themselves for the stone, and obviously they each think that they're going to be the one to sacrifice themselves. So they get into a fight, and in the end, Natasha ends up outsmarting Clint and saving his life to prevent and stop him from preventing her from killing herself.
Mm-hmm.
And Natasha sacrifices herself for the Soul Stone.
Yeah.
So Black Widow is now dead. And for reals, they make a very heavy point in the movie of pointing out that this is the eternal trade-off.
Yeah.
When you trade yourself for the Soul Stone, you don't come back.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you bring them back, you lose the Soul Stone.
Which, by the way, fuck Burton up even more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, they had a hard time getting him to stop wanting to run around and Ronaning everybody. But they get him to come back. They get him to be involved with the whole entire crazy idea of the time heist. Just to stand there and watch the death of Natasha. Somebody who he arguably absolutely loved.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, almost as
Well,
much.
she was part of his family, too.
So
she was the last remaining member of his family after the snap. And for her to have to be sacrificed to get the Soul Stone, that was it was the worst thing that could have possibly happened to Clint.
It really was. So, you know, now we move forward. We're in the 1970s, and Tony runs into his... Go ahead.
You have to give the storyline of why they had to go to the 1970s.
Feel free.
Because...
As a matter of fact, at this moment,
It's a
guys...
3-hour movie. If we do all of the things, this is going to be like a 5-hour podcast.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys. I need to personally take 5 minutes, so I'm going to pass this over to Zepp to continue on with it, and I will be back. Guys, continue on without me. All right.
Okay.
But, yeah, Zepp, you got it from here.
You got it. So, in New York, the Battle of New York, circa the original Avengers movie, Banner successfully retrieves the Time Stone from the Ancient One. While that is happening, Captain America is going after the Mind Stone, which was in Loki's scepter, and Tony and Ant-Man are going after the Tesseract, which was the Space Stone.
Mm-hmm.
So, as Ant-Man and Tony are going after the Tesseract, Tony decides to dress up in some guard uniform and have Ant-Man jump into his past self's arc reactor and cause a little bit of heart trouble. For a distraction. So that they can get the case and walk away with the case. Well,
right.
Things don't go exactly as planned, and the case gets knocked open, and the Tesseract slides to the floor in front of Loki while this distraction is going on. And Loki just picks up the Tesseract, does the shifty eyes look, and poofs. So he is gone with the Space Stones. And so Tony and Ant-Man just decide to get the fuck out of there. And meanwhile, Captain America is retrieving the scepter, Loki's scepter with the Mind Stone in it, which has been picked up by two of the guys that we know are Hydra agents from Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and Civil War. And I think the one guy that picks it up also becomes Crossbones later on.
So
they all get in the elevator, and I love this. Cap gets in the elevator with them, with the scepter in the case and everything, and everybody's standing around, and it's this super tense moment, and it's a shot-for-shot remake of the elevator scene from Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Nice.
Like, I'm not kidding. It is a shot-for-shot scene. I totally expected Cap to be like, now, before we get started, does anyone want to get off, and just go into it, beat the crap out of them, and walk off the elevator with the Mind Scepter? But what they did, what the Russo brothers did with this, made my heart so happy as a comic book fan, because they made a callback to the comics that was much needed, and it was basically giving the finger to a stupid-ass plot line that came out a couple years ago. Cap leans over after telling the guys that it's okay, he's there to carry point on the scepter, he'll take it from here, and they don't believe him, and they're very iffy on it. Cap leans in real close to the one guy and says, "Hail Hydra."
Oh.
The next scene is him walking away with the scepter. Presumably because they just gave it to him, because it's like, okay, cool, Cap's on our side now.
Right. Nice.
And I loved that callback, because when the Cap being Hydra the whole time comic book storyline came out, I thought it was dumb as hell. It was so stupid. And the fact that they had to retcon it later with, oh, Cap was brainwashed to think that he was Hydra the whole time, it's like, it was still a stupid idea to begin with.
If you had to retcon it, it was probably a bad idea.
The fact that the Russo brothers made a callback to that for the Avengers to serve their own purposes was great. I loved it. So Cap manages to successfully secure his stone. Banner manages to successfully secure his. They meet up with Tony, or Cap meets up with Tony and Ant-Man back out in the streets of New York. And they have a brief discussion about how they lost the Tesseract and how they only have one more trip each. And then Tony has this bright idea of, I know a place where we can both get the Space Stone and more Pym particles. Which is what time travel hinges on, having Pym particles.
Right.
Because he knows a place where they have both of them there at the same time.
Yep.
So they hand the scepter to Ant-Man and tell him to jump back. And I think this is the scene that Chris was talking about, where he was so happy to see the tension between Cap and Iron Man gone.
Right.
Of Cap and Tony start syncing up their devices, getting ready to go, while Ant-Man is like going, what the heck are you guys doing? Come on, explain this to me. And it's this really tense moment of Iron Man looks over at Cap and goes, do you trust me? And Cap's like, absolutely. And then they go. And next thing you know, they're in 1970.
Nice.
And none other than the SHIELD headquarters. Circa
1970.
Agent Carter.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
So, anybody who's fans of the Agent Carter TV show got a nice treat for this part of the movie, because they came in the 1970s, circa Agent Carter. So they go down into the bunker. Tony goes to retrieve the Space Stone, and Tony ends up running into his father after retrieving the Space Stone. And Tony handles talking to his father marginally well. As
well as one expects Tony Stark to handle that.
He almost leaves the briefcase with the Tesseract inside it behind. If Howard Stark hadn't handed it to him, he would have left it.
Smooth, Tony.
Tony and his father have a great heart-to-heart talking about their children and being a good father. And it's just great moment of Tony getting to see his father
Yeah.
at his father's most vulnerable. Because obviously his
Yeah.
father has no idea who he is.
Right, right.
And of course, Cap is going to retrieve the Pym particles. And so Cap goes and gives a call to a young Hank Pym, which was very great. I loved how they were able to get him to look so young. And I also loved the OG Ant-Man helmet on his desk. That was a nice. But Cap calls up Hank Pym, makes some bullshit story about, we got this case here for you. It's kind of glowing. And Hank Pym's reaction is, you guys didn't open it? Yeah, we kind of did. And Hank goes running off.
Yeah.
Because obviously they were dumb and stupid and did something they weren't supposed to. So Cap
Right.
retrieves the Pym particles, meets up with Tony, and they jump back with the Tesseract to present day, I
Yeah.
believe, was the jump. Because they had the Time Stone, the Space Stone, the Mind Stone, War Machine and Nebula successfully retrieved the Power Stone
Right.
from Quill. And let me just say, it was great to see the opening scenes of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Is everything okay over there? What just happened?
You okay, Venus? Or
Yeah?
was that Kristen?
It wasn't me. There was just suddenly like it sounded like a woman's scream. There's like a crash and then like a scream sound.
Well, it wasn't from my
Well, that
side.
is so weird. I didn't
Yeah.
even hear that.
Anyway, but
Okay.
I thought it was so great to hear from the other side, the Guardians of the Galaxy opening, of Chris Pratt being in all his goofy glory, singing "Red Bones, Come and Get Your Love,"
Right.
with Rhodey giving the best line of that part. So he's an idiot.
Yeah.
But there was one small hitch with Nebula and Rhodey retrieving the Power Stone.
Right.
As soon as Nebula jumped into that time period, apparently she interfaced with the Nebula of that time without realizing it, and Thanos knew everything.
Never a good thing.
No.
So, and that's where it kind of put a hitch in their whole plan.
Oh, yes, because Thanos managed to capture the present day Nebula and sent the past Nebula to infiltrate them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they collected all of the stones. They created their own Infinity Gauntlet, and they found out that Hulk pretty much has to be the one to use it because it's a ton of gamma energy.
Mm-hmm.
And they managed to use the gauntlet, but then Thanos jumps into the present day and immediately attacks,
Yep.
thus bringing us to the climax of the movie, which I think, I haven't seen the Battle of Winterfell, but I definitely think that the Endgame battle has it beat. Because, at least in my mind, the final battle for Endgame has Helm's Deep beat in my mind.
I mean, I think that they're kind of apples and oranges, honestly, though, because it's two totally different kinds of scenarios and battles. Like, they're not really comparable. Like, in one, you have superpowers, and in the other one, you have swords. So it's like, it's a totally different thing.
Gandalf has superpowers.
Gandalf has stuff. I mean, I saw the final battle. I'm still going to go with anything from fantasy over. Like, I like fantasy better, but I do think it is apples and oranges.
the battle was excellent. We can agree on that. The battle was excellent. But enter Thanos. He comes down, and before the giant battle, we have an amazing showdown between Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and Thanos. Because while Hulk and Rocket and the rest of the Avengers are trying to get themselves out from the now destroyed Avengers facility,
right?
Clint is trying to keep the new gauntlet, the Stark Gauntlet, away from Thanos' minions.
Yeah, there was kind of an epic game of keep away.
Doing a very good job of it. Like, Clint did really well keeping that gauntlet away from them. But they had a great showdown between our three main Avengers. And I say the three main Avengers because in the original comic book run, the original Avengers were Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, and Hulk.
Right.
We only had those four. And we completely forgot a group that went after Infinity Stone. Thor and Raccoon jumped into Thor: The Dark World to retrieve the Reality Stone from Jane.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In which Thor had a very great heart-to-heart with his mother about how he needs to stop being who he's supposed to be and just be who he is.
Oh, yeah.
And it ends, that's the scene of them retrieving the Reality Stone, ends with Thor summoning Mjolnir, catching it, and exclaiming, "Ha-ha, I'm still worthy." And so they jump back to the present with everybody, having retrieved their stone, and Thor takes Mjolnir with him.
Yeah.
So going into the final battle with Thanos, Thor is wielding Stormbreaker and Mjolnir in epic dual-wielding fashion.
As one should.
And so they fight Thanos, and Thanos is holding his own against all three of them.
Yeah.
And so...
you have that epic Captain America moment.
Oh my god, yes. The most epic Captain America moment. Thanos has Thor pinned and is trying to push Stormbreaker into Thor's chest, directly mirroring the Infinity War moment of Thor pushing Stormbreaker into Thanos' chest. And next thing you know, Mjolnir comes flying by and hits Thanos from behind.
Yep.
And instead of everyone expecting Thor having called Mjolnir to him to hit Thanos from behind, Mjolnir goes flying back from where it came from, directly into Captain America's hand, and Captain is posing there with the shield and the hammer in one hand, and Thor just looks back and exclaims, "I knew it!"
Yeah, that was great.
By the way, guys, I have returned. I do apologize. I know it's kind of unprofessional. I did sit through all of the 3 hours of the Avengers without needing a bathroom break, but unfortunately dinner just did not stick.
Oh, no. Well, we've gotten to...
the best part.
Yeah, Captain America picking up Mjolnir.
Captain America is officially canonically worthy.
Yep.
Yes, I did. The only thing that confused me about that part, I may have missed it in the movie, but how did Mjolnir come back?
Thor retrieved it when they went back to the Dark World to retrieve the Reality Stone from Jane. After he had his heart-to-heart with his mother, he held out his hand, and there was a really long wait, and the mother looks over, Frigga looks over at Rocket and just goes, "Sometimes it takes a while." Mjolnir comes to his hand and he says, "Ha-ha, I'm still worthy," and they go back to the present.
Okay.
And then I think it's just after all of the Captain America picks up Mjolnir, then that's when we start seeing the swirly gold and everything, isn't it? With all the people coming.
No, that's not yet. Cap fights Thanos with Mjolnir, and Thanos ends up gaining the upper hand, breaks Captain's shield.
The unbreakable shield.
Yep, the unbreakable vibranium shield gets snapped in half, directly mirroring Tony's vision in Age of Ultron of Cap lying dead with his shield cracked in half. And he gets knocked to the ground, and he gets up, and I was so disappointed. I totally expected him to look at Thanos and be the, I could do this all day.
Yeah.
But it was pointed out to me that it was already used earlier in the movie of past Cap when he mistook present-day Cap for Loki, gave the line, and Steve responded with, yeah, I know.
Can since I was going for it, can we just speak for a moment about America's ass?
Yes. Complete fan service. So, in the beginning parts of the time heist, Scott Lang has a throwaway line of, Tony has a line making fun of Cap of, hey, your original suit does not do anything for your ass. I'm sorry. And Scott Lang retorts back with, as far as I'm concerned, Cap, that's America's ass. And does a little nod salute. And right after the fight with past Cap, after Steve knocks past Cap out, he kind of looks down at his own unconscious body and sizes it up and goes, yeah, that really is America's ass. Anyway, back to Thor wielding Mjolnir and the shield getting cracked in half. So, right after Cap stands up, Cap is just kind of looking at everything happening, and Thanos gives the whole, after your stubborn attempts and everything, I'm just going to destroy everything. And you know what I'm about to do to your world? I'm going to enjoy it. And right after that line gets delivered to Cap, and Cap has this dismal look on his face, you hear a radio transmission in a very familiar voice. Cap, come in. Cap, this is Falcon, come in. Or I think it was Cap, Sam, come in. Because I think he used Sam, not Falcon.
Right.
And so, and you have Captain America give this very quizzical look, and then the portals start opening.
Yes.
I remember watching the scene in the theater, and I just had this thought of, that's a lot of sling rings. Of all these portals just start opening. And one by one, you get all the heroes coming back. That was total fan service, that entire scene.
Yeah.
So much fan service. But it was great.
And that's where we lead up to things like Spider-Man coming to automatically to find Tony Stark, pop open the hood to the Iron Spider costume, and just right off the bat start, like you said, jawing Tony Stark, motor-mouthing Tony Stark about what had happened. And all the while, Tony's just looking at him like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. And he just comes in and hugs him. And Peter hugs him back, and he's like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah, that was adorable. Oh, we're doing, okay, this is nice.
And that was perfect characterization out of Tom Holland, because to him and the rest of everybody else, with the exception of maybe Stephen Strange, it was instantaneous. They died and then they came back. They had no idea what happened the past 5 years.
Right.
So Peter is just motor-mouthing to Tony, who he had just seen a few seconds ago, as he was, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good.
Mm-hmm.
He's spouting off all this stuff that he got told by Stephen Strange and everything, getting Tony caught up. And then on Tony's side of the thing, Tony has been shouldering that guilt for 5 years. And here is the source of his guilt staring at him in the flesh.
Jabbering on and on.
Returned. And like the loving father he has become in the last 5 years, he just immediately embraces Peter, and it's great. It shows
that was a beautiful moment.
It shows that characterization that Tony has gone through.
So.
And can I just say I love all of the introductions for each of the characters coming into the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Because
even to the point, like, I'm not a huge fan of Black Panther. I know, blasphemy. I didn't care for the movies, and even in the comic books, he's like the most useless superhero. However, his pop through with the rest of Wakanda, you know, and going back into that Ibombe, you know, chant and everything else is just great. Like, it even got my blood boiling. Like, let's do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, as soon as Black Panther and like the rest of the Wakandan army started stepping through that portal, I just wanted to do the frickin' arms crossed over my chest and shout Wakanda forever. Like, as soon as he stepped through, and then they did the Ibombe, and I'm like, oh,
yes,
I want to fight.
Scarlet Witch had an amazing moment. That was awesome.
She had a well-earned moment.
She did.
Because she fucked Thanos up.
Oh, she did. And her line when she first sees him, you took everything from me.
Everybody is saying, and even Kevin Feige has weighed in on this, saying that Captain Marvel is the most powerful Marvel Cinematic Universe character. And I beg to disagree.
It's Scarlet Witch.
Even based on comic book canon, because Wanda is an Omega class mutant.
Mm-hmm.
See, I would argue. I know he's
power stunt in the entire comics canon, in the wider canon universes and multiverses, is she completely wished away all of mutant kind. With 3 words. No more mutants.
See, I would argue the point. I would argue the point for comic book
She's
points.
An Infinity Stone in her own right.
I would argue the point from a comic book standpoint that the most powerful character is Deadpool. he's killed the Marvel Universe twice.
Yeah. But he's not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe yet.
In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not yet. No, but I'm talking about it comic book wise.
In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Kevin Feige even came out and in an interview said that Captain Marvel is the most powerful character in the Cinematic Universe, which I beg to differ because
it's Wanda. Wanda is the most powerful one.
She's an Infinity Stone in her own right.
But she really doesn't. I feel like they've never really given that character the weight that she should have.
Nobody knew how to use her yet.
Right.
Not yet.
See, one of my favorite parts in the whole movie is when Captain Marvel.
They didn't entirely have her yet.
Hold on, guys. Venus was trying to say something. I don't think anybody heard it. Sorry.
Yeah, so, like, my favorite part in the entire movie is when Captain Marvel got knocked out of the fucking stratosphere. Like, that just did it for me. I'm like, yep. I sat there looking all gleeful, probably, like, all fucking glum as fuck. And, like, fucking, yay! Why are you so happy?
Like, don't get me wrong. I love Captain Marvel as a character. But the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the writers of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has to be really careful of not overselling her. Because while she is essentially Marvel's Superman, it's going to be bad for the cinematic universe as a whole if they do end up overselling her.
Well, can we be fair here? Like, I know Kevin Feige turned around and said that she's the most powerful in the MCU, and that's fair enough. But I mean, she's not even a tenth of the original Captain Marvel, and I don't mean Shazam. I mean of the Marvel Captain Marvels.
Oh yeah, you mean Marvel?
Yeah, I mean Marvel. You know, she can't hold a candle to him. In comic book lore.
Yeah.
You know, so now granted, in the comic book, he passes powers on,
Yes.
and all, where the cinematic universe decided to take a completely different approach. But the fact of the matter is that she's not as powerful as what Captain Marvel was initially designed to be.
No, he was designed to be Marvel Superman. Like he was that level of cosmic power. But
he was Superman 3.0. If you think about the lore of Superman, you had Superman from DC and Action Comics. Mm-hmm. Then you had Captain Marvel, who got sued and became Shazam, and then they bitched about him being too much like like Superman, but then bought the franchise and Shazam became part of the DC universe. And then we have Captain Marvel, who was a direct descendant of Shazam and Superman. So he really, the character of Captain Marvel is literally Superman 3.0.
Yeah. But, as much as everybody was against the whole taking Captain Marvel and putting her up on a pedestal, I did enjoy her coming back into the fight and all of the guns just pointing up at seemingly nothing, and Tony going, "What are they shooting at?"
Right.
And then she just comes screaming in and takes out the ship.
Yeah.
Single-handedly, and it's like, all right, nuke, check.
Yeah, there were a ton of great moments just in the fight.
I did enjoy all the people who hated Captain Marvel because of Brie Larson, which I'm not a fan of Brie Larson. I didn't like any of her comments and everything else that she continues to have. I think she's a cancer to the MCU as far as promotion is concerned because of her pushing her political narrative a little too hard. That being said, though, I love the fact that everybody was so worried about that they're gonna Captain Marvel the shit out of this movie, and she was basically like a 10-minute plot device through the whole 3-hour film.
She was a MacGuffin.
She was a MacGuffin.
In the case of the movie, she was a MacGuffin.
Yeah, she was.
But to be fair, that is essentially Captain Marvel's place in the Marvel comic canon. Because aside from a few short runs of the Captain Marvel comics, Captain Marvel really only appears for stuff like Secret Wars or the cosmic level events. Infinity Watch,
That is true. But continuing on with your synopsis of the movie.
So, after we have our big crowning moment of awesome, of everybody coming in, and Captain Marvel coming screaming in to destroy the ship, we have a great scene of Spidey getting the gauntlet from Clint, and Clint telling him to take it to the van. Because they need to get it to the van, because they're going to try something with it. I forget exactly what they were going to try and do. But I think they were going to try and jump it through time to return the stones to their rightful place. And Spidey is running through everything, trying to get the gauntlet away. And for the first time ever, we see him activate the kill mode on the Iron Spider suit.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true. That suit is. I remember when I first saw it, like I thought it looked flashy and cool, but I was disappointed it didn't look like the actual Iron Spider suit from the comics. With that said, that suit cinematically is an absolute beast of an outfit.
Oh yes.
And Tom Holland's portrayal of not knowing a tenth of what this fucking suit does plays so well to the character. Like even going back to Infinity War when they try to save Stephen Strange on the ship, and they pull the aliens maneuver of sucking the dude out into space, and then Strange is going, and Peter whips out a web trying to catch Strange, and he's still getting sucked out into the hole into space. and all of a sudden the legs pop out of the back of the suit, and, you know, Peter's all like, yes! Wait, what the hell are these things?
Yeah.
Can we all just agree that Tom Holland is a treat?
Tom Holland is the Spider-Man that we deserved, that we needed. Like,
Yes.
I absolutely give total credit to Tobey Maguire. I give absolute credit to Andrew Garfield for what they did to the characters in the movies, what they brought to the characters in the movies. But Tom Holland was born to be Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yes.
born
Yeah.
to be Spider-Man.
He absolutely was. I actually have, let's get through the synopsis and then I can cover my theory, because then we'll have all of the stuff out on the table.
There you go.
So they managed. Peter manages to keep the gauntlet away from Thanos' minions for at least a little bit, but he keeps getting knocked over and out. So in comes Captain Marvel, who tells him to hand the gauntlet to her, and so he gives the gauntlet to her. And Peter asks the armor-piercing question of, those are an awful lot of guys. How are you going to get through that? And I really appreciate that Marvel is doing this, and they're giving the representation that is necessary. All of our Marvel Cinematic ladies walk up, and she has help.
Yeah.
Yeah. They created like this phalanx of women
the
warriors.
only thing that disappointed me after that scene was we got a scene of Shuri and Pete 5 feet from each other, and we didn't get any interaction between the two.
Yeah.
I want to see those two interact, because I need it. I have a need. I ship it.
He ships it. He he wants a Shreeder. He wants. It took me a minute to put those two names together. He wants a Shreeder.
Oh, God.
Anyway,
Just saying, those two would have a lot of fun together.
you want
The
that?
shit-
I'm still waiting for a
The
Spider-Man
shenanigans
Deadpool.
would be hilarious.
I'm still waiting for a Spider-Man Deadpool crossover, like in the comics.
We need Tom Holland to grow up a lot before we can have the Spidey pool happen.
No, we
'Cause
don't.
we
Deadpool.
need the
Deadpool
char-
would still be coveting over Peter
We-
regardless.
We need the character of Peter Parker to be like Parker Industries has been established and all of that before we have Spidey pool. Because part of the fun of Spidey pool is that we have the more mature Peter Parker that still has a ton of snark, but is still the more mature straight man to Deadpool's absolute insanity.
And pansexuality, because he's head over heels in love with Peter and with Thor, which
Yes.
is just.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, can we ever get a crossover between Deadpool and Thor, please? Can we make that happen?
Right?
Probably. Disney owns Fox.
Yeah, I know. Which, a little bit
But-
off topic, but when you think about it, Disney owns Fox, Fox owns MASH. Klinger is now a Disney princess.
Right.
That is true.
And Disney owns 2 Hawkeyes.
But fuck all the princesses, because since buying Fox and Fox owns Aliens, Disney has a fucking queen.
Yep.
Anyway, back to Avengers.
Let's see where we left off. He handed the glove to Captain Marvel. All the women come out, and it's a really awesome scene. Unfortunately, it's not enough. Thanos manages to get the glove from Captain Marvel and puts it on. But Captain Marvel is able to keep him from snapping his fingers long enough, and Thanos has to pull the Power Stone out of the glove to punch Captain Marvel with it and launch her into orbit. Which I hear was Venus's favorite part.
I was really expecting
was,
a
yes.
yay moment there.
But Thanos puts the Power Stone back in the glove and readjusts it on his hand. Tony makes one last mad dash to grab the glove from Thanos, but is thwarted And Thanos takes the moment, and we're all afraid, and it's going to happen again. No, not the snap a second time, but this time it's going to be so much worse. And all we hear is a clink.
Sell it, baby. Make me believe it. Sell it. Come on.
All we hear is a
I can
clink.
hear you getting into this.
And Thanos turns the glove around to the camera, and you see it's like the fucking moment from Robin Hood when he's presenting the rings, and the blue little John character just kisses all the rings and takes them in his mouth, and smiles, and you see all the jewels. It was like that fucking moment for me where Tony just holds up his gauntlet, and then you can see the Infinity Gems sliding into place on his armor.
Yep.
And Thanos gives his whole thing of I am inevitable and everything, and Tony gives the best line he could possibly fucking give after 10 years and 22 movies. Ladies and gentlemen, they ended it with the same word. They bookended it with the same words. He ended his first movie, the movie that started it all back in 2008. I am Iron Man. And snaps his fingers. And we get to watch as all of Thanos' army is dusted. And Thanos takes a minute to look around in the full 360 pan and seeing everything fade. And it kind of stopped my heart for a moment, because in the 360 pan there's a character behind Thanos that's kind of like kneeling down in very much the same position that Tony was when he snapped, and that character floats away into dust, and I'm like, oh no, Tony dusted himself. I had this heart attack moment of, no, not like that. I fully expected it to happen, but I was not expecting it to him to dust himself, and I'm so glad that that's not how it happened. But anyway, after the 360 pan finishes, we watch as Thanos turns to dust himself, thus ending the threat. And the Avengers have won the day, but unfortunately, there was a cost. And you get to watch as Pepper and Peter run over to a now dying Tony, and it's very heart-wrenching watching essentially a mirrored image of the scene in Infinity War of Tony watching Peter die, as Peter now watches his mentor die.
But yet at the same time, Tony would not. We have to point out, Tony refused to give up, to stop breathing, until Pepper gave him permission, saying we're all fine.
You can rest now.
You can rest now. We're all fine. We're gonna be okay.
Yeah, that's the other reason. Like, that one hits.
I'm not gonna lie.
Mark.
I'm not gonna lie. A single tear rolled down my cheek.
Who's crying? You're crying. I'm not crying.
But yes, Tony Stark is officially dead as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And after that, the last scenes of the movie are the funeral, Tony's funeral.
Yeah.
With
little closure scenes.
And I loved they played Tony's little goodbye message to his daughter and to everyone, really.
I love you 3000.
Love you 3000. Tony really did make a great father in this movie. Like, they really did a great job on the characterization for that. And of course, you have the proof that Tony Stark has a heart in the wreath that Pepper sets out into the lake. And then we have the slow pan backward of
all the people and their faces.
Each group of heroes. And did anybody catch the Easter egg?
The kid.
The kid in the background. I have confirmation. It's the kid from Iron Man 3.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's totally him.
Did anyone notice how they had Captain Marvel all by herself way in the back too?
She wasn't though because right behind her walked in Nick Fury, her only real friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took a while. She was there for like the ceremony by herself.
True.
And then
Nick
there
Fury
was
just
a
shut up
little.
last moment.
Yeah. There was a little scene between Wanda and it was oh my god, I'm blanking because I'm starting to get where he was like, the only thing is I'm sorry that they won't know that we won.
Oh, it was Barton. It was
And
Barton.
They
and
know.
then she says they know. And so I liked that scene too.
I saw something on an article somewhere that somebody was like, "Oh, Wanda was referring to Gamora when she said they know," and I'm like,
No, she was talking about
"Fuck
Vision.
you! Get out of here!" She was talking about Vision. Gamora.
Talking about
no.
Vision. Because
She
also, like,
wouldn't
Vision
talk
just
Gamora.
died to her.
Uh-huh.
Because it was 5 years for everyone else, but she just went through that snap. He just died for her. She is, like, heavy in the grieving.
Mhm.
So, she was talking about him.
Can we talk for a moment about Star-Lord getting Gamora back, but it's a different Gamora?
Oh, that was great.
If there's not a fitting punishment for everything that happened in Infinity War because it was Star-Lord's fault, it's the fact that he did get the love of his life back, but she don't remember falling in love with him.
Right. Yeah.
He goes to pet her face like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're back," and she just fucking throws him on the ground like, "Really?
Oh.
This is what I chose?"
Yeah.
Nebula's comment after that was great. It was between him or the tree.
Yeah.
But we still have one more very important part
Uh-huh.
to finish this film. Go ahead.
So much to Bruce Banner's promise to the Ancient One, in order to preserve the timelines, they had to return the Infinity Stones back to the exact moments they took them from. And so they put all the Infinity Stones in a case, and they send Cap back in time one last time to return the Infinity Stones to their rightful place. So Cap takes the case and picks up Mjolnir and makes the jump, and Banner gives the countdown, and after the end of the countdown, Cap doesn't come back. So Banner's flipping switches everywhere, trying to bring him back, and Sam happens to or it was Bucky that turns around and calls Sam's name. And there's an old man sitting on a bench
By the lake.
by the lake, just sitting there, looking out at the lake with a little bag next to him. And Bucky and Sam walk up, and sure enough, it is an aged Steve Rogers sitting there just staring. And Sam asks the question of, was it an accident? Or did you choose to stay? And so Steve tells Sam that he finally decided he was going to give that life that Fury was always telling him to get a try. And sure enough, after the scene, we get a little flashback of him back in presumably the 50s with Peggy. He finally got that dance.
Finally got that dance. You know what? It was a super touching part, and I felt that it was a very, very
It was the right ending.
it was an earned ending for Captain America.
I liked the handing the shield off the Falcon, and the how's it feel? Like it's somebody else's.
Yeah.
You know what? That was the only
it's
part
not.
of the whole entire film that bothered me. And it's not because of Sam becoming Captain America, because I know he does. But it really didn't feel earned. When Sam does it in the comics, it's a completely different type of scenario that makes him don the Cap persona.
Right.
So knowing that storyline, and then Cap just deciding I'm going to go get a life, and when you meet me when I'm old, I'm just going to hand you the shield and say, okay, you do it now. That didn't feel earned to me.
It was still a nice passing of the torch.
It was a nice passing of the torch, but Sam, I had so much more respect for in the comics for the reason and way he became Captain America.
Right. Unfortunately, I don't think they really had time to flesh that out
True.
without a whole other movie.
True. So to me, it was like, I accept it for what it is, but it could have been so much more epic as far as
Besides,
Sam's ascension to Captain America.
We're probably going to get a lot more of the build up to that with the Winter Soldier Falcon series.
Right.
Mhm.
But I love the line of after he hands Sam the shield and tells him that it's his now, and he pats Sam's hand, and you see the wedding ring. And you gonna tell me about her?
Nope.
Nah, I don't think I will.
Yeah, it was a good ending for him.
That
Mhm.
smug look on his face too. No, I don't think I will.
Yeah.
I can't even believe that like lots of people are not liking that ending with Captain America.
I love that.
Yeah, I don't get why. I had a friend who said they completely assassinated his character, and I'm like, I kind of don't.
No.
Like, they
No,
gave
they
him.
put him to rest.
Comic book Cap would have absolutely taken the opportunity to go
They
back.
gave him a happy ending.
To go back to his own time
Well,
and live his life as he was supposed to.
To play the devil's advocate for a split second, just for a split second, because like I said, I said it felt like an earned ending for Cap. However, I could kind of see the point of some of these people saying that because of the fact that it goes against Captain America's selfless nature. That he went back to do a mission and then decided, fuck it, I'm going to go do for me now.
No, he went
Well,
back and like it
I
was
know-
selfless of him. I mean, like he could anything bad could have happened, right? But everything turned out more than perfect for him.
I know why they ended it for Cap that way.
Because it was the end of Cap's story.
Well,
Well,
Not
Steve
enti-
Rogers' story, excuse me.
not entirely. It all comes back to the Cap and Iron Man thing. How they've been through the whole cinematic universe. Cap was always the one to make the sacrifice play from his first movie to everything.
Right.
Whereas Tony started out as the
Very selfish guy.
very selfish guy, all about him. And at the end of Endgame, they flipped. Tony made the sacrifice play. Finally made the sacrifice play. And Cap finally, after all these years of selfless service, did something for himself.
Well, that's my point. Like, I can see where the fans are coming from, where it feels a little like betrayal of character because he's been so selfless in the MCU and always putting the mission and the people above himself in every way, shape, and form. However, you can't tell me that all the sacrifice that Steve has done throughout his 90 years of existence, within the MCU, thanks to being frozen and, time travel and everything else, that he didn't deserve this. Like,
Oh no, he absolutely
totally
deserved
did.
it. He absolutely deserved the happy ending he got.
But
But
you know, like
I do point out that thematically speaking, that ending for Cap was the way it had to be because it played in perfectly to the dichotomy they've built this whole time between Cap and Iron Man. You couldn't have had Iron Man make the sacrifice play without having Cap do something for himself for once.
that is true.
Because they've played off the exact opposite of each other for the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. They've always been each other's foil.
well, it's not like it really changed much because, like, what was Hulk saying? That if you go back in the past and it's no longer your past, you're in the future, and where you came from is your past. So it's not like he fucked anything up. I mean, he did what he had to do throughout the whole movie, and then he got the opportunity to, like, live his timeline without changing the timeline. So it kind of, like, I don't even know how people can, like, scrutinize that. Like, it works out perfectly.
I don't know how it's that selfish even. Like, he returned the stones where they needed to be. He just took himself off of the future missions in the future. Like, he didn't basically. It's not like he screwed the world over by staying there.
No, you're
So
absolutely
it's
right.
not even that selfish.
You're absolutely right, and I have visions of old man Steve Rogers sitting in his apartment or his home, turning on the TV and seeing the exploits of himself and the Avengers on TV. You know what I mean? Like, I remember doing that,
I remember we got shawarma after that.
Yeah, so.
I'm just imagining
shawarma.
old man Steve Rogers in the middle of New York during the Battle of New York, just casually walking around because he knows everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I bet he was in that shawarma restaurant after. He was just sitting there in the background eating and watching them.
One of the worst bitches I heard about, which I can kind of understand it, but I don't agree with it. The biggest thing I've heard is that a lot of people felt like it was a lost opportunity that old man Steve Rogers was not Stan Lee.
It couldn't have been.
A lot of people felt a certain type of way that they didn't use Stan as old man Steve Rogers.
It wouldn't have worked. It would have been too different.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because now we reached the point of where we talk about the good and the bad of the movie and what we thought of it and all. But the big thing I've got to ask, the one question I've got to ask, basically 11 years, 22, 23 since we count Endgame in this now, 23 films. At the end, unfortunately, we lost the creator, Stan Lee, before filming. The film was completed, but before it was released. He did not get a chance to see this released.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he would have been proud of what has transpired and how this caps off the whole entire cinematic universe's first wave, if you will? I know it's three phases, but first wave.
He'd be stoked.
So.
He would be stoked. He would be so amazingly stoked at Endgame.
I do. I think they did him proud.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually loved the memes going around about the spoilers for Endgame of, Stan Lee up in heaven watching people doing spoilers for Endgame of, don't make me come down there, you punk.
Yeah.
I saw that on Instagram earlier.
to which he's going to come down and get us because we just gave a full spoiler review.
Imagine we resurrected him.
If that's how we fucking get him back, great.
Well, that's it. We lose.
He's going to come after the two of you anyway. You guys did most of the talking with the spoilers.
Guys?
Yeah, me and Kristen are totally safe.
Guys?
We're good.
Wait a minute. Guys, I walked away for a good 10 minutes to take a shit.
Well, I mean, then I think the three of us are safe then, and sorry.
But hey, if he's the reason we get Stan Lee back, I'm all for it.
Exactly.
I mean, how can we lose Stan Lee and keep, Beyonce? Come on, really?
Well, Beyonce's not
that's
that
a fair
old.
trade right there.
That's just proof that life's unfair. Overall, let's talk about it. Some of your favorite scenes.
Definitely America's ass. That was just funny, no matter how you slice it.
I did get a kick out of the interaction between Thor and his mother when his mother showed that right off the bat she knew who he was.
Mm-hmm.
The future has not been kind to you. What happened to your eye?
oh, honey, I wasn't born yesterday.
My favorite was the Asgardians of the Galaxy.
That's actually a comic run.
Yeah, I loved that scene between Thor and Star-Lord. That was freaking hilarious. I loved it.
Definitely Cap wielding Mjolnir.
I enjoyed the scene where Cap and Thor were standing side by side, and they both called back the hammer and Stormbreaker, and they each went to the wrong person. They were like, no, you get the little one.
Yeah, you get the little one.
Yeah.
The Peter rambling to Tony, and that hug.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is nice. Just you know.
Loki just fucking poofing with the Tesseract. That's gonna come back to bite them.
That is gonna come back to bite them.
Loki is alive now. I'm calling it because Thanos wasn't there to go kill him.
Maybe. I would say, like, as someone who was primarily interested because the two characters I wanted to live in Infinity War got dusted. Well, one got dusted, the other one got a rock ripped out of his head. Like, I felt like that there was not enough payoff for that, because those are the characters I was really interested in, and then they were just like, they're at the end, or not there at all. And so that was the one thing where I just, for me personally, like, that's what was missing, is I didn't feel like there was that payoff after all the waiting and all the anxiety of, oh, what's going to happen to these characters I really like, and then they were just barely there.
Well, the great thing we're going to get now, the cinematic universe moving forward, is all of the people who got dusted, they now have to readjust to being 5 years in the future.
Uh-huh.
Because they missed the last 5 years. But there
wasn't really much to miss.
They were all snapped back into existence. Not
Right.
entirely. I mean, not for our heroes so much, but for the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole. You got to imagine the people weren't dusted, moved on in those 5 years.
Right.
So imagine that there is a bunch of people who just got snapped back into existence, coming back to find that their spouses that survived got remarried or started new families. That's probably going to come up in the wider cinematic universe.
All right. And,
That's the part I care about.
But add some drama.
and Venus, what about you? What are some of your favorite parts of this film?
Oh, yeah, Captain Marvel getting knocked out of the stratosphere, hands down. Number one part. Captain America fighting himself, I gotta say, that was pretty damn sexy. And
America's
oh my god, right? And there's like two of them, it's like, oh boy.
Hey, if you really want to treat yourself, just after you're done watching that scene, go and watch the first two Fantastic Four movies where he was the Human Torch.
Well, I've always
Picture
been a
this.
Captain America fan since he first came out. Yeah, I actually made a joke on my Realm of the Mist page with it had to be said by Venus. And I was like, oh, I was so disappointed that Thor and Aquaman weren't together. And oh my god, did that just cause like an uproar? Like, people are like, oh my god, don't spoil it, blah blah blah. And I'm sitting here giggling, and I'm like, Aquaman's DC.
I know, I loved that. I was like, I looked at it and then I was like, wait a minute. People are getting mad.
I know, it was great.
I would be the jerk that would jump on that status and say, wait, Namor's in this picture?
And everybody goes silent because a lot of people that only follow the movies or whatever and don't actually read the comics. Namor is the Submariner who was technically the first water user before Aquaman.
Oh. Yeah, Thor's with his mom was great too. Yeah, like there was a few moments and I'm like, oh my god, he reminds me so much of my little boy. Like, yeah, it's probably like every mom's moment too, to be like, yeah, that's like my little boy right there. Are you crying? No. Yes.
Oh, you know
Like-
a part we were talking about, like Tony being a father. We forgot one little thing. With the resurrection of everybody who was snapped, Groot came back. Teenage Groot.
Yep.
And during that fight, did anybody notice how protective Rocket was of Groot?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Like extra protective, like when things were falling, Rocket's over top of Groot protecting him. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to lose your friend twice, right?
Well,
I mean, your friend just comes back and it's like, oh my god.
Well, you got to remember at the end of Infinity War when Groot is dusting and he's talking to Rocket and he says, "I am Groot." Of course, none of us speak, Groot, so we don't know what he said. The director actually came out later and said that he called Rocket father. So teenage / baby Groot looks at Rocket as his dad.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it was like tied up between which was the sadder dusting, Groot or Peter Parker, because both of them were like, oh my God, heart-wrenching.
That's the thing that a lot of people just watching the Marvel movies don't seem to understand. Teenage Groot is not the same Groot as the original Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Right. He's an offspring.
Exactly.
So.
And a lot of people don't understand that. They're just like, oh, it's Groot. He must remember everything that happened. And I'm sitting here going, no, he doesn't, because he's an offspring.
Yeah, he's a child. He's Groot's son, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So... But, all right, well, no picture is ever perfect. We've talked about the things we liked. I know there's things we didn't.
Well, I said my piece earlier about what I didn't like. I was mad that there wasn't a Peter Shuri interaction.
I said my thing.
I think that should have happened.
All right.
I honestly found that Captain Marvel looked starstruck by Thor. He did not play that part well, especially when it came to Thor. Like, you look like a little, like a 13-year-old girl who has a crush on someone who's like, oh my God, type of deal. And when he's like, oh, I like this one, she's like just beaming, and you could just see it, and you're like, wow, this is not acting. You cannot contain that smile.
Well, as I said to Kristen earlier, thank you very much, Chris Hemsworth, for your portrayal of Thor in Endgame. You finally made it feasible for me to cosplay as Thor. Looking like the Big Lebowski and shit. But yeah, I said my piece about, like, I didn't like the way Falcon became Captain America in this movie. I didn't feel it was as earned.
But, I think that's part of what they're trying to set up the next phase. Right. I think we're definitely going to see more of Sam earning that title. Like, the series that they have for Falcon and Winter Soldier is titled Falcon and Winter Soldier. So if it takes place after Endgame, it might be a whole arc of Sam
refusing to take on the mantle.
Not taking up the mantle of Captain America and more growing to realize that he needs to.
It's something will happen that America needs a symbol. And that'll force him to.
I was about to make a reference. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with My Hero Academia, but how All Might is the symbol of peace. I was thinking about how Cap kind of fulfills that role in the cinematic universe. He is the symbol of the heroes.
Yep, even in Spider-Man: Homecoming, where he was considered a traitor to the country, but they were still showing his PSA messages in the schools.
Yep. So I think that might be a big part of the Falcon and Winter Soldier series is Sam coming to terms with the fact that the world needs a symbol of peace, and you're it, bro. And that we're probably going to see his earning that mantle.
Right.
I just want to see my favorite character back. That's all I care about. With WandaVision.
It will all happen in WandaVision.
Yeah, depending on what they do with it. I've heard it takes place in the 1950s, so it's got to. I'm assuming, but it's also canon, so it's got to have something to do with time travel.
Well, I mean, we have the time travel canon in the cinematic universe now.
Right. That's why I say it has to have something to do with that.
All right. Well, then the final question I have for the panel on Avengers Endgame is very simply, again, 11 years, 23 films. Now ends this chapter, if you will, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But we know that a lineup is coming, whole new characters, whole new story arcs, whole new universes. A couple familiar faces, like, Spider-Man: Far From Home and Doctor Strange 2,
Supposedly Spider-Man: Far From Home is the final movie of Phase 3.
All right. But either way, we have another phase coming, and we're going to be introducing a whole lot of new characters. and story arcs. How excited did Endgame make you? Not only was it like, you know, how exciting was it to see the culmination of 11 years, but how much did it excite you for the next stage of Marvel?
I'm pretty fucking excited.
I'm just sort of the same baseline. Just because I'm the fantasy nerd of the group. That's where my priorities are. Like, I'm like, oh, these are fun. But I'm also suffering from a little bit of Marvel, like, burnout. 'Cause, you know, it's fun, but I've actually usually wait till they come out on Netflix, and I'm like, I'm going to watch it here. Also, Thor is probably my favorite. I love Thor.
Now that we've reached the end, did anybody else stick around their theater until the end of the credits, like I did?
No, I didn't think they would fuck with us about when they announced that there's no end credit scene.
There was not an end credit scene. However, there was a sound at the end of the credits, and I thought it was a very nice bookend.
And that sound was
the sound of Tony hammering on the anvil for making the Mark I armor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I heard that too. Well, I didn't hear the credits, but I heard about it.
And Venus, how about you? You didn't answer the question yet.
No, I was trying to dip out. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I know for older people who have been watching it since like they're 20 and they're like, 40 years old now. It's like, oh no, it's a whole new world. But I'm like, oh yeah, it's a whole new world. I'm only 30. Bring this shit on. I've got another 20 years to invest. I'll be
Hey, wait a minute. 40-year-olds don't have 20 years to invest? What are you trying to say?
Well, no, because you lived with these characters and everything, right? So it's like, now you got to say goodbye to them all and everything. And I mean, I've only been like watching this for half the time that they've been running for like the 20 years or so. So, and it's pretty cool too, because like I got my kids that are like all interested in it, and they're hyped up about Thor and everything else, and I'm like, oh yeah, like let's go round two.
See, Marvel, the same way as Star Wars for me, and again, I've been with that fandom for 42 years. What's exciting to me is not only seeing the culmination of everything that we've known so far, but knowing that I get to enjoy this with my children and probably get to still enjoy these things with my grandchildren. Like, my children get to take their children to these things because they'll be still going on that farther down the road. That is an exciting thing to me. And to me, that's a mark of true master storytelling. And when you go to master storytelling, you got to go back all the way back to God, the late great Stan Lee, because without him, none of this would have been possible.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't find that like at the end of the day, you're gonna be like, well, this wasn't like this in my days, and you're like one of those old grumpy old men who are like, oh well, they could have done it like this, and I wasn't expecting like that because of this and that and that, Are you gonna be like one of those like old men, or like you're gonna be like, yeah, that was fucking great, I loved it, blah blah blah.
Something to bear in mind.
Up with it.
Well,
People are going to come in and take over how this is run, and they may not do it as well as this group has.
You're absolutely
they
right.
might do it better.
They might do better. They might do it way worse. You never know. You don't know.
It's going to be different, though. It's definitely going to be a bit different. So, I mean, we're going to have to expect that. So we can't be sitting there ruining our kids' fun and be like, this is fucking bullshit. It should happen like that, But
at what point does Marvel burnout happen, though? And it is hypothetical that they could stop before the master plan is done.
Oh, fuck
because
no,
if they
allowed.
stop making them, if they stop drawing in the huge crowds, it won't continue.
As long as
I'm calling the cops if that happens.
As long as sorry, go ahead.
I figure we got at least another 10 years before they stop making money hand over fist.
See, I would say as long as the story remains solid, as long as good storytelling is involved with it, there's always going to be an audience for it. Just like with comic books.
Superheroes will never die. Exactly. Like, how long have comic books been going? Since they started, they haven't stopped. And they just keep getting more exciting, and there's more characters, and there's more plot twists, and everything else. I mean, you can't really kill a comic book franchise in the movie theater.
Right,
I
and
don't know. I think they're doing pretty well with DC.
yeah, DC's testing that theory. They're like, hold my beer.
Like, oh, really? Although Wonder Woman was amazing.
But to answer,
I thought Aquaman was great too. So,
to answer,
and they have a few new movies coming out.
yeah, but Shazam's the crown jewel of DC right now.
Didn't Wonder Woman have like the same director as Thor Ragnarok?
I think it did.
Which would explain why I love both Wonder Woman and Thor Ragnarok is my all-time favorite Marvel movie. I freaking love that movie so much.
I'm pretty sure the director of Thor Ragnarok is the guy who voices the Rock guy.
He is. He was also in a movie called What We Do in the Shadows, which is freaking brilliant. So good.
That guy is a comedic genius.
Oh.
But to answer Kristen's question about like when the stories move on, you know what? Like when I introduced my children to Star Wars, they were just starting the new trilogy, the sequel trilogy. So I never spoiled anything of the new stuff to them, or you know, whether I agreed with what the decisions they made or whatever, or the way they filmed it. I never destroyed that. But really, what I truly enjoy, which I think the fans of Marvel could do with their children when they become of age, is going back to revisit where it all began and seeing the joy again for the first time in your children's eyes of the scenes that you felt that joy with. Like the best example I can give, the look on my daughter's face when she found out Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father. You know, you can't replicate that. I felt that in theaters as a kid. I got to watch my kid feel that on DVD, on Blu-ray. You know what I mean? And you think about it, with the Marvel Universe, you're going to have the same deals. You're going to have your kids sitting there on the couch one day watching Thanos snap his fingers and half the world is gone.
And then you have to pay for the therapy that you caused your children.
I'm gonna force them to wait a year between Infinity War and Endgame.
Just let them soak
Builds
on that
character.
for a bit, right?
You must suffer as we did.
You must finish all your peas on your plate, or I will get the Infinity Stone and I will snap, and it'll be your fault.
Oh man.
Hey, Venus, why don't you go ahead and tell us what's in store tomorrow night for It Had to Be Said?
Oh, tomorrow we're talking, we're going to bitch about pregnancy and about how men view pregnancy. One of the main topics is why men are scared of having sex and poking their babies in the head with their penis.
Because our egos are longer than our actual Johnsons.
It's true, though. Oh, my God. I hear that, like, all the time. And then, you know what? Okay, I'll get into it tomorrow. I'll hold it together for now. Exactly. I'll hold it together for now.
I can only handle so much stupidity.
We're going to be talking about people on the internet and why they do the attention-seeking things that they do. They're quite embarrassing stuff. And we're having a new segment of dumb shit I've read on the internet this week. So for anyone who's on my Facebook friends list or any groups that I'm in, I'm screenshotting all your fucking shit. You'll remain nameless, but some of you guys are the stupidest fucking people, or say the stupidest fucking things I've ever read in my life. And you know what? The whole world needs to share my joy with me when I read this shit and crack up laughing. Look, that's going to be a new addition tomorrow.
Look, I'll be the one that will say it right out. I do not make the same promise that Venus makes about keeping you anonymous. If your shit is that dumb, I'm calling you out on it because your parents need to fucking put you in timeout or something.
I'm taking contributions for that show, by the way. If anyone wants to email me, at venusuncensored@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Venus Chan or Solar Nova, depending on how bad I was that week. And you can find me here tomorrow.
And Kristen.
So sorry, you caught me off guard. My brain went elsewhere.
Well, why don't you, besides telling them where they can find you if they want to speak to you, don't forget to mention about certain something you have coming out soon and other things that you can get.
Yes.
Shameless self-promotion.
Shameless self-promotion. Plug.
Well, come August 15th, you can get the third book in my Song of Souls trilogy on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I'm going to do a little thing that I haven't really said publicly anywhere else.
Yay!
There will also be, coming out around the same time as the third book, although I don't have a specific date, hardback editions, special editions of all 3 books.
Nice.
So, yeah, and you can find the first 2 books, Soulbound and Soulfire, on Amazon and on BarnesandNoble.com. You can find me on Facebook via the Song of Souls trilogy page. You can find me on Twitter, Kristen Stovall. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Tumblr, but I'm barely ever there anymore. And you can find me on Star Wars: The Old Republic on the Starforge server, usually running around as a teeny tiny agent with a giant gun. So that's where I am.
And guys, don't forget to go to the link to the official Realm of the Mist website. Link down below. Hit the merchandise page, and that will give you a direct link to Christian Stovall's books as well. So don't forget that as well.
Do the thing and leave reviews unless you don't like it, and then go find something else to do.
Go yell at Mark Hamill for means.
Well,
Yeah.
guys, we are officially longer than the runtime of Endgame.
I was gonna make that reference as I brought it to you, Keith, but as usual, you're done before I am.
It's a talent.
Go ahead and tell them where they can find you and what you do.
All right, you guys can find me on Facebook, Keith Zephyr Partlow. You can also find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Zephyr0. That's ZER0, an actual 0. And then you can also find me on Realm of the Mist, whichever podcast they decide to Shanghai me into at the time. And I'm also the host of Press A Gaming Podcast. I think we're doing that one bi-weekly, so it's bi-weekly every other Friday.
You're weak and bye. I'm straight and strong.
Hey now.
Sorry, Liam, I had to steal it. And guys, definitely make sure you're checking out all our buddies like WPS Podcast and Think to the Brink and many other ones. You'll see them in the commercials coming up at the end of the episode here. But guys, you can find me anywhere Realm of the Mist Entertainment is found, wherever quality podcasts are found. You can find me on all the social medias. Just look up Realm of the Mist. You'll find us. Guys, thank you very much. The end is here, and I'm going to snap it as we step on out of here. We'll see you tomorrow night for It Had to Be Said. Have a good night, guys.
Why didn't the Three Little Pigs go in for some kind of flat share scheme?
Does Jesus get to choose which wine he turns it into?
Why don't Sims have the upper body strength to climb out of a swimming pool?
And does everybody really want to be a cat?
I'm Will Baker.
And I'm Alex Prescott.
And if you're the type of person that overthinks these deep philosophical questions, then Think to the Brink is for you.
From Disney characters to song lyrics, debates to social etiquette, tune in every week for your dose of paralysis by analysis.
All topic suggestions are welcome. If you can think it, we can overthink it. Think to the Brink. Available on all podcast platforms.
Hey everyone, this is John Polly, inviting you to check out a Star Wars podcast. Each week, Christopher Polly discuss the news and interviews surrounding one of the largest movie franchises in the world. So join every Wednesday at 8 Eastern as we look see far, far away, right here and wherever flying our country.
When you need vape juice slot, go to Vape Scorpion. 1-855-191 as Eosfer. They have all your needs, all the equipment, all the juice. And hey, while you're there, sit down, enjoy a beer, and just hang out with a bunch of cool people. Guys, if you really need your next vape machine, or maybe you just want to try a locally made juice, make sure you hit up Vape Scorpion. That's 1085 Boston Avenue, Philadelphia, PA 19116. Or give a call to 215-464-8273. Oh yeah, and make sure you let them know that Realm of the Mist Entertainment sent you.
He said that she said, how dare you say that? That's offensive. Well, someone's gotta say it. It had to be said with Venus. Catch the live show Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Check out the recordings at any time. Guest shows weekly. Listener, beware. Mature content, sexual content, trigger warning. Do you dare say it?
Hi, my name's Chris, and I'm here to tell you about Realm of the Mist podcast. Realm of the Mist podcast, we talk about all the great entertainment things, from movies, music, books, comic books, and many, many other forms of entertainment, as well as politics, current events, and just general humor and having a good time. If you're looking for a podcast that is right up your alley, look no further than Realm of the Mist podcast here on Anchor.fm, or where fine podcasts can be heard.
Hi, this is Dave from the Comic Collection at 83 Bustleton Pike in Feasterville, Pennsylvania. Our phone number is 215-357-3332. We are right next to Northeast Philadelphia. We have action figures, gaming, statues, albums, and CDs, graphic novels, other knickknacks, and, of course, comics. Established in 1985, we are your go-to store. Come by and say hello, and say that the guys from Radiocast FM Radio sent you. The address again is 83 Bustleton Pike, Feasterville, Pennsylvania, or call 215-357-3332.
Three-eyed turtle? Is that alright?
What the fuck is a three-eyed turtle?
Who wants a mustache ride?
Are you tired of the same old podcast with no humor? Well, join us after hours where it's funny, at least to us, on Anchor.fm, and where quality podcasts are heard.
How the fuck did we get on this?
I don't know.
FCC started this shit. It's their fucking fault.
Hey everyone, this is Dak.
This is Liam.
And this is White People Shit.
We are a bi-weekly podcast.
Whoa. Maybe you're bi-week. I'm straight and strong.
It means twice a week, you douche.
Oh. Yeah, listen to us twice a week. On White People Wednesdays, we talk about gay stuff, zombies, superhero sex positions.
And on Featured Peep Fridays, we interview the Featured Peep of the Week.
Yeah, like a fucking furry.
Just search WPS Podcast and look for the white dude in red pajamas.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
We believe in equal opportunity humor, where all things can be made fun of. So if your feelings get hurt and you're offended, you can always
eat a dick.